All right. What's good, y'all? Hope everybody is well. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Hopefully we'll have a little fun today. I'm going to get into some geek stuff, and I always like to have two good brothers that are going to join me in on this conversation to help me do it. So I will get through the preliminaries pretty quick. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you would, so that we can continue to bring you this independent Black male thought. So please make sure you do so. And there's all kinds of ways you can go ahead and do that. There's Patreon, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Of course, you can do the super chat right here on YouTube, become a member of the channel on YouTube, and enjoy some of the perks that are involved with that. Or you can go to Patreon and become a patron of the channel there, and you can donate either to the Onyx Report or the Institute for Black Male Studies, or both, so that we can continue to bring you this. Last but not least, where'd it go? There we go. Make sure that you go ahead and support the book, Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry, written by yours truly. You can pick that up, Amazon, Routledge, a number of other places, but support the book if you will. There's a hard copy, but there's also a digital version of it as well. So, support if you're able. All right. So let me get to that. So shout out to Malika, who is coming through. He says round 2 for the Motu review by the Geek Elite crew. Much appreciated. We started this on Artisan MC's channel. Artisan goes live all throughout the week and has his primary show at 11 o'clock a.m. Sundays, and that's Pacific time. So look for the Artisan MC channel, and he covers all things related to geekdom. So check that out, support him. And we started a conversation this morning on his channel about Masters of the Universe. And so we're going to continue that here. Shout out to the International Quiet Storm. So support Black Male Media. Peace, Doc. Your book is incredible. No, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Shout out to David, from the official sponsor of Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, Black Men. Much appreciated. Thank you for that. But without further ado, and I am going to suggest that you donate to these brothers' channels as well. So if they can go ahead and send their donation links in the back chat, the private chat, I will go ahead and put them on the screen because I want to make sure that their channels are supported too. But let me go ahead and bring them in because we're just going to dive into this a little bit. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but then from there we'll just probably have some dialogue. So let me bring in, let me put the I'm gonna put the display names as well. You got Sergeant Charles Faulkner, Charles Faulkner, and you got Artisan MC himself. So what's up, fellas?
Hey, what's up, Doc?
Hey, what's going on, Dr. T?
Oh man, you guys. Yeah, I was good to see that you two had watched it. Charles was writing up some stuff on Facebook. I was like, I got to get these brothers in because I didn't know how many people saw it or even wanted to after the first season, and
they made up for it a lot.
yeah. But I want to start this. and I'm gonna slow down in a minute, but I'm a little fast paced because I really wanted to get this conversation in. But I want to start this with the basics. When were you introduced to Masters of the Universe, and what did you like about it? And I'm going to start with Artisan, and then I'm going to Officer Faulkner or Sergeant Faulkner, excuse me. When were you introduced to it? What were your thoughts about it as a kid, or whenever that first introduction was?
First introduction to Masters of the Universe had to be around 83 or 82. Remember, my mother had this was the new toy that was out, HeMan Masters of the Universe, and me and my brother got up under the Christmas tree and opened this stuff up, and it was full of Castle Grayskull, HeMan, Skeletor, Man-at-Arms. I mean, we had the whole slew of this stuff. My mother really went in for this Christmas, so we got all of this stuff all in one go, and then from there it got into the cartoon, watching the cartoon every day, talking about it with my friends at school and stuff like that. This is like elementary school, like around, I want to say, fourth grade.
Yeah.
So it's been there in my consciousness for a long time. Now, once the original cartoon series kind of faded away and went off, I didn't get into too many of the other ones. That I didn't really like them. They weren't really speaking to me. I did enjoy the Masters of the Universe movie for what it was at that time, because it's seeing something that you've been playing with as a kid finally making it live action. Big deal. So I like that. But the later cartoon shows didn't really get me. When Netflix came around and Kevin Smith was involved with doing Masters of the Universe Revelations, my antenna picked up. I like Kevin Smith's work. I wanted to support that work and see what it was. It's about HeMan. It should be good. And I was disappointed. I was a bit disappointed. So I took a step back from it at that point, not wanting to watch Revelations Part 2. I didn't need another part of that Revelations. I thought the Burning Sword did its job. But thanks to you with peeking my antennas up about you were watching the new Masters of the Universe, I tried to blank the fact that they had made another one out of my mind. And once I understood what was happening with it, I went ahead and binged it, and I was pleasantly surprised at what I saw.
Okay. Sergeant, you want to tell us?
I hated it and I never liked it. No.
Right.
I'm a child of the 80s. That's all you either had this or Thundercats. Sometimes little G.I. Joe. But I'm familiar with I actually have the book upstairs. The Bible of the Masters of the Universe.
Okay.
I was familiar with the material from being a child of the 80s, and of course you had the cartoon, which was very popular, the toy set, and of course the mini comics. Like, I remember the New Adventures of HeMan in the 90s, 89, 90. We don't talk about those. I think the brilliance of it really started to flesh out when you had the 2002 Cartoon Network version, which was a much more up-to-date anime influence, but still American drawn. That was a great version.
Yeah.
Screw you, Cartoon Network. You're going to hear a theme with that. Cartoon Network, where all your favorite cartoons go to die because they don't give you the seasons for it. Shout out to Young Justice. That was a great, extension of the series because they were diving deep into the mythos. But we go back to DC Comics in 2012. Yeah, we love Silverhawks, but they're not going to outrank Thundercats. They never will.
No, second in line. Third in line is Tiger Sharks, if you know what that is.
Hold on, tiger sharks.
That's what I liked about the latest Thundercats. They brought all of those into the same, like
Yeah. Universe.
yeah. So that was kind of cool. But
Yeah, and they had a good thing, but remember what I said? Screw you, Cartoon Network. For your favorite cartoons, when they get good, go to die. The 2012 DC, when DC got the licensing for Masters of the Universe, and they told a story of He-Man and modernized it.
mhm.
And if you see somebody in the ending credits, like I told Artisan on the phone, I'm not going to tell people who that person is, but when they show that person, I was like, oh, we going there, huh?
Mm.
We're deep going there. And if you haven't read the 2012 Master of the Universe DC run, personally, without any bias, that was probably one of the best written stories in the last decade or 5 years.
Okay.
It was brilliant. It was brilliantly done. Things, the character design, and they didn't. Of course, they know they were bringing in new readers, but they didn't insult the intelligence of the traditional fans of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get down to Netflix. As an artist, I think Revelations was beautifully done and animated. I have no problems with that. I was like, woo, my God, I need a poster.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Every season, or both seasons, I should say.
oh yeah,
The animation, as you guys can see here, was gorgeous.
that's brilliant.
I'm not
Beautiful,
gonna.
especially they brought that, and plus they were giving so much fan service when they brought the battle armor He-Man. That was fan service, man.
Well, and there was a lot of it, even down to the cast. There were so many micro elements that were brought in that it was something for every level. Like if you'd never heard of it, you could follow along. If you were super deep, fourth grade and onward into He-Man, there were so many tidbits that you could dig. So, they covered a lot of ground.
I'm already looking at the character designs and thinking about some of the toys. Like, okay, I gotta develop a drug habit or something, or sell drugs, just to take my money. Just take my money. I just want the figures. But Revelations was interesting because there's some things I loved about it, and there's some things I detested.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The story of Teela from any series or any iteration, she would not, and I repeat, she would not walk out knowing her best friend Adam is finally revealed to be He-Man and feel like she was betrayed. She would be in great mourning because she actually cared, whatever iteration you want to say, she cared for him like a brother, or she really loved him.
Yeah.
She wouldn't be selfish and then having, I got to have an I Am Woman Hear Me Roar moment. I got to shave my head and keep one part long and flip it over. I got to go into the gym and have a training montage and get buff.
Yeah, I'm like, international feminist haircut.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. They're space barbarians. They're already muscular. So
look, Artisan, look how hard it is for me to find the
oh yeah, they tried to scrub those.
They tried to hide it, man.
Hey, when I was doing my videos and I put in Masters of the Universe, Teela, most of the images came up were from Revolution. It wasn't from Revolution. I'm like, yeah. I realized they messed up, didn't they?
Well, all right. So to give some context, there have been 2 seasons of this as of now, of this series on Netflix, because there was also an animated series, right? What?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah. So there was 2 seasons. The first season was called Masters of the Universe Revelation. The second, Masters of the Universe Revolution. And in the first one, and mind you, there's spoilers all throughout. So if you don't want spoilers, you can feel free to come back later and watch it after. It's up to you. But for Revelations, they told us after the fact that it didn't necessarily have to be about He-Man, and because his name wasn't in the title, that they had not promised that. And sure enough, it ended up being about Teela, which pissed a lot of people off. They felt they were baited and switched. And there were a couple of YouTube channels involved in that whole debacle with Kevin Smith, one of which was Clownfish TV. They had got hold of this.
Clownfish rode him like a horse.
Yeah.
Like Battle Cat.
They got hold of the script early, and they let the fans know that this is not about He-Man. It's a bait and switch, and that they were doing the whole Mary Sue, Ray, Skywalker thing. And Kevin said it wasn't the case. He called them liars. He said they were lying. And sure enough, when it came out, everything they said was true. And even though they split season 1 up into 2 separate parts and released them, separately, the fans did not take well to it. And Kevin kind of really got a spanking. He got a serious spanking. So this second season, they came back and really had to do a lot of fan service to clean it up. Right. So I wanted to start before I let these two sci-fi geniuses jump into this in depth. I wanted to start off with a little bit of an overview. Y'all know I like to start with IDBM. We can actually look at what we're talking about a little bit here. So, Revolution. It's on Netflix. So it just came out several days ago. And I like to start with the cast. So here you have Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself playing Skeletor in both series. William, that's right there. William Shatner kind of pops up as a nice little surprise to the fandom. Which I want Artisan to actually be able to break down the significance of when he gets a chance. I don't know if you guys ever watched News Radio, the show News Radio. That looks like the guy from News Radio, the boss of the station, playing Cringer.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, you can't forget Melissa up there, Supergirl herself.
You got Supergirl playing Teela.
Yeah. I was trying to get this screen to work right.
Slide over
here.
So
she definitely looks a lot better than Taylor Swift.
Liam Cunningham, who, if they did a live action, I wouldn't have been mad if he was actually Duncan. So
I wouldn't have been either. I like him.
Yeah, so he plays Man at Arms.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. You got Chris Wood as He-Man. I'm not familiar with him though.
He was on Supergirl too. He was on that show as well.
Okay.
Little sidekick, mushy dude.
Okay. Let me see. I'm not familiar with some of these people here. Tiffany Smith.
She looks familiar, but she got a strong chin. I can say that much. But I thought that was funny when I looked at her. She's the voice of the black girl, huh?
Yeah, she is.
They had no problem with that this time around, huh?
Nah, I don't know.
Maybe she's mixed. Who knows? No, she's black enough.
Yeah, she's POC. She a person of color, right?
You got Lena Headey, I guess it is, who plays
Evil
Lynn.
I love her as Evil Lynn. She steals the show every time she's on screen.
Yeah, she did.
Cersei from Game of Thrones. Yeah, she could be Evil Lynn. When I heard that cast, and I was like, "Yep, that's Evil Lynn." As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I didn't know her by name, but as soon as I saw her face, I was like, "Yeah, that worked. That worked." And this one I didn't know about. Gates McFadden.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
the Next Generation alum. That's
She plays Crusher. And Queen Marlena. That's actually a really good role.
And on a side note, this is why they didn't need to do the whole bullshit from the first Revelations. Queen Marlena is a badass in every iteration of Mewtwo. She's an astronaut and she's a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She gets busy. She puts in work.
Put in work.
She puts in work. Okay. She was very feminine in any iteration. You notice Queen Marlene is very feminine, but let you tacky Eternos. She getting in a fighter jet and she's lighting your ass up.
Yeah. I mean, when you imagine the kind of like white woman that would be a fighter jet pilot and an astronaut, you wouldn't imagine her being as maternal and feminine as Queen Marlena by the time she gets to Eternia. But she's always been played that way.
Right.
You know. But I thought it was an excellent choice. Now I gotta say, Keith David, he's just gonna go down as one of my favorites as far as voice actors, and I enjoy his acting too. You know, but voice acting, is unparalleled. I mean, his Spawn, his HBO Spawn is still just flawless.
Yes.
Flawless. Every time I go back and watch that HBO series, I want to kick somebody, because especially Todd McFarlane for not doing another season, because Keith was flawless.
Yeah, I think that was on HBO, because Todd don't have a problem pimping his character out there. I think that was more so on HBO, but that animated show was awesome from the 90s. If you guys never seen it, go back and watch that Todd McFarlane Spawn on HBO. You'll see that was American anime for its time.
Oh my God.
It was graphic, it was brutal, it was the comic, animated damn near. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was enjoying that. Really enjoyed
it. It was excellent, man. It was excellent. Oh, hold on. Wrong thing on. But and he is just as flawless here. I'm hoping we get Charles back. I don't know exactly.
We lost him for
what happened. Yeah. But anyway, there we go. He's back in. Here we go. Hold on. All right. You back, Charles?
I'm black and stride again.
Okay.
Man. And I just wanted to say, Keith David, how do you get Goliath and Spawn as Hordak? I was sold on him like that one.
Man.
Perfect Goliath, perfect Spawn, and I gotta say, as Hordak, flawless. I mean, even down to the what do you call it? The snorting.
Snorting.
Gotta love the space vampires.
It's hard to keep my respect when you snort in mid sentence, but
but
Keith David can get away with it.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be scared, but I'm not gonna laugh. That was
okay, so Uncle Ben says Keith's going to MegaCon in Orlando, I believe. Okay,
awesome. Go see him.
Yeah, but he was absolutely flawless as Hordak. So shout out to Keith David. Meg Foster plays Motherboard. Now the thing to keep in mind with this series is they, except for the adventures of He-Man, I think it was, that happened after the original cartoon, the series sought to link all these other productions into one. From the aesthetics to some of the storylines, some of the characters, even the live action He-Man movie. So Meg Foster played Evil-Lyn in the live action film.
And she was bad as hell as Evil-Lyn back in the day. So
yeah, she was.
She literally was in multiple iterations. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is going to end up being the official canon of the series, because shout out to Gildor and the Cosmic Key. And when you look at it, they gave you fan service even in Revelations, because you had the Savage He-Man from the mini comics that you got with the toys. You had the Wonder He-Man, Wondar, the Wonder Bread He-Man. You had a different, and you got to realize the He-Man was not just him; it was a title.
Yeah,
and there's many people who served it. You even had, like, what was another one? I mean,
well, we're gonna get there, because we're gonna go through all the cast. So let's see what else is in there. So here we go. So we had so Ted Biaselli himself plays Gwildor. Ted is one of the main writers of this whole series, and he's the one that most people point to as having jacked up the first season. with a lot of the girl boss feminism that he kind of brought into it. But anyway, so he plays Gwildor, which is one of the characters they used to replace Orko.
Moist.
They used to replace Orko in the live action movie. And so to bring Gwildor in as a character was actually quite brilliant. But anyway, I'm not a fan of Ted per se. We got Diedrich Bader as King Randor. You know,
good choice. He has connections to Kevin Smith because he was in that Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So this is one of his industry friends that he's made that, you know, he can call up and get them to do like guest spots and stuff like that. And any production he's doing, it's like, oh, sure, I'll do it for my buddy.
Yeah.
But, dude, you got connects.
He's still hilarious in Office Space.
Yeah.
He's never seen Office Space.
It's kind of funny because you see some of the depth some of these voice actors have, because if you notice some of their work, you're like, this guy's King Randor.
Right.
Right.
Like,
right.
This guy almost made me cry. That
right. Like, this the dude? Like, oh, man. I didn't know that one.
You know, I'm not crying. You're crying. I'm not.
Like, it's just Dusty.
Dusty.
But yeah, man, that's one of the reasons I like going through IMDb when we review a film, because I'm always caught off guard by something. And this is one of the biggest ones for me. John Delancey.
Yes, that caught me off guard.
Hugh himself from the Star Trek series is Granamir.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
And if you don't know anything about Granamir, that was one of my favorites. You can put Granamir in YouTube and they have all kinds of clips from the original show. Granamir was the shit.
Granamir was like, he knew everything, but he didn't take a shit off of anybody.
Right. No, he was an ancient dragon that hated humans and thought they were inferior.
Right.
And he would just be talking shit the whole time with this authoritative voice, you know, because the first time they met him in the series, HeMan meets him. He was like, yeah, you know, humans are this and that, and they're selfish and greedy and they're ugly. I was like, the hell is this?
Right. Who is you?
And he was like the second oldest creature in Eternia. So he was just, you know, but he wore a helmet, you know, and had this little palace that was where he was surrounded by jewels and this huge pit that he lived in, and that's all.
Yeah, looking like Smog sitting up there.
Man, he was chilling, you know. But you know, I thought it was interesting they brought in Q to play Granamir in this, which was brilliant, and I was surprised to see Granamir. So that was again a lot of fan service, you know. So if you never knew who Granamir was, you could enjoy the performance. But if you knew who he was, you loved it that much more.
And they got his personality down to the T. Jesus Christ.
He was talking shit though.
The whole time. And they matched him up with a little Lynn. Oh my God. They fed off of each other's snarkiness. That was their special powers, was their snarky superiority complex.
Yeah. They were straight talking shit back and forth to each other the whole time.
Right.
You know what reminded me what their relationship was? Bella Reese and Red Fox and Harlem Nights.
Damn. In the guise of a dragon and a sorceress, huh?
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Like swallow it and shut up.
You blind.
They were going back and forth for real. But it was well done. Susan Eisenberg as the sorceress. That sounds familiar, but I'm not as familiar with
she's
her.
been in she's done a lot of voiceovers.
Okay.
She's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, I think the only person who did more cartoons than her, like two, was Cree Summer and what's the one who did Harley Quinn?
Not sure.
I know what you're talking about. She just passed recently too.
Yeah.
Oh, the original Harley Quinn. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And Tara Strong. Those are probably the only people who did more voice acting than her.
Yeah,
well, you know. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying she's been all over the place, all over DC.
Yeah,
so that's another industry contact.
But I remember now. What she's known for is she's been Wonder Woman in the Justice League animated universe.
Yep.
Okay, so she plays the sorceress. That kind of works. You got Jeffrey Combs, who I'm familiar with from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
He's playing Zodak. But gotta give love, man. Tony Todd.
Yeah, the writing on the wall.
I got to give this one to Artisan. Go ahead, man. If somebody doesn't know who Tony Todd is,
you're missing out.
You're in the wrong tough spot right now.
Break it down, man.
Look, Tony,
go to your bathroom and say his name 3 times.
In the mirror,
I dare you.
Yeah, I dare you. Tony Todd is another one of those black male actors that has a presence on screen. You automatically know his voice when you hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And this one kind of snuck by me when I was watching it at first. Because I first watching the series, I got hyped for seeing Scareglow. But then when I realized who it was, I was like, man, that was like perfect casting. He's played the Candyman. He's played actually Death in the Final Destination series. So where did they go in the beginning of the show? They went to your final destination, which was Subternia, and Tony Todd chilling down there.
Which fits. I mean,
which totally fits. And he's usually fine playing that part. He doesn't worry. I don't think he worries about playing that part at all, but that voice has that resonance. You already know when you hear it.
Check out Malika.
Candyman.
Yeah. But they did a lot of that, I think, with certain characters. Like the voice actors had something that kind of made it fit in terms of who they were actually playing. And Tony Todd, he even played Worf's brother in the Star Trek series. I mean, this brother has been on it for a long time and has one of the best animated, voices right outside of Keith David. So, so excellent pick. Let's see if we can get a little more out of the crew here. Now, you made an interesting point before, because as was said, this is really part 2 of a conversation that was started on your show this morning, Artisan. You talked about the significance of Mark Hamill playing Skeletor. Can you get into that a little bit?
The significance of Mark Hamill playing Skeletor is that I like Mark Hamill playing Skeletor. Mark Hamill has had a long career acting, and his voice acting career is iconic. He is the voice of the Joker. For anybody who knows better, outside of seeing the live action versions, the voice of the Joker animated is Mark Hamill. Mm-hmm. Now, Skeletor sounds a little like Joker at some points in this, but that's a minor thing. It's just when it goes on. But Mark Hamill is in pop culture, in geek culture, as Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Now, the turn that happened in this was that you got to see Skeletor's origin, right? Mm-hmm. Being Keldor, who he was before he became Skeletor. But they did something really interesting in this, in that the voice for Keldor was not Mark Hamill's voice. The voice for Keldor was William Shatner. Mm-hmm. Now, as a geek, that is like huge, because you got William Shatner, arguably one of the most notable captains in Star Trek history, right? James T. Kirk sided up with one of the most notable characters in sci-fi, Luke Skywalker.
Right.
They're both doing the voice of the same character. The same character, basically. So basically, you have your Star Wars and Star Trek union happening in this show. And I'm like, as a geek, if I was a geek director and I could write that and get those two people in there voicing the character, saying words that I wrote, I would be losing my mind, dude.
Yeah.
I'd be back in the booth just,
I already lost my mind.
Yeah, I would have lost my mind. That would have been a dream come true for me. So,
well, that's definitely a feather in Kevin's cap, man.
Oh yeah, that was the biggest fan service moment for me. That was a huge fan service. Like, wait a minute, that's William Shatner. Holy shit! I was just blew my hair back for a minute. I'm like, wait a minute.
You had to do the remix, Captain's Log, Stargate.
So I got Kirk and Luke existing in the same show with some other Star Trek, notables in the show, Gates McFadden and stuff like that. It's like, oh, dude, this is like the cast.
Yeah, it's the cast. Yeah, so far. So let me catch up to where we kind of left off with Tony Todd. We got Phil Lamar. Now, Phil Lamar is, if you're not familiar with Phil, this is a classic right here. I mean, he's done so many voices. I guess in my head, Samurai Jack is always the first one to pop up for me, but he's done so many voices, it's ridiculous. So you got a brother playing everything from black to white to Japanese characters.
He play everybody.
And it's flawless.
He just work.
It's funny because his rendition of the of Jon Stewart was so powerful. The reason why the Green Lantern movie didn't work is because you had a whole generation of kids growing up. Green Lantern's black,
right?
So, Phil Lamar, I mean, good God, what hasn't he done? Bad TV. I mean, he's done all kinds of stuff live, and what hasn't he voiced? I mean he's always done he's a Static. Yep. I mean, Jesus. I mean,
yeah, a lot of them. We got in the chat is blowing up with information. Check this out. So somebody, JL West said Chris Wood's wife is Melissa Benoist. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Benoist.
Yeah.
Yep, that's her husband. And he gets to play He-Man.
That's an interesting connection right there, right? Yeah.
So I guess that's why the love interest seemed kind of authentic.
Yeah, I think that's why it came back too. I think that was one of the reasons why it came back. Because if he's going to be He-Man and she's playing Teela, they're already a married couple. They can actually pull that shit off.
Yeah.
Right.
And shout out to Robert Monroe, who reminds us that Tony Todd played an adult Jake Sisko in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That episode I actually show in class. There's like 2 episodes that I show in my classes, and that's one of them. Where we see an adult Jake. That's a whole brilliant. I mean, we could do a show just on that episode alone. But thanks for pointing that out. So a lot of information coming from the chat. Let me see. Okay. Shout out to Malika. He says Mark Hamill also played Trickster flawlessly in the original Flash television show from the late 80s.
Yes, he does.
And I wonder, did he play Trickster in the animated Justice League?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
He played the Trickster in the CW Flash.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the elder. He has good connections or good relations, I should say, with Warner Brothers. So one of the things I like that Warner does is bring back some of these people. If you've ever acted in one of their comic book properties or something like that, they might bring you back for voice acting or bring you back in some other role in that stuff. They do a good job of keeping those people in there. Like, we all know Christopher Reeves was Superman for his time until he, fell off a horse and broke his neck, and then he was paralyzed.
Yeah.
But what they did with the Smallville show, they brought him in as Dr. Swan. And he was the guy who knew more about Krypton than Clark. So he was teaching the younger version of himself, basically, of a person who's playing Clark at this point about Krypton. I'm like, that was fucking perfect. And they brought Margot Kidder back as his assistant. I'm like, they do stuff like that all the time with Warner, which makes it really good. And because Kevin Smith has actually written and directed a few episodes of Supergirl, he has that connection to Warner Brothers where he can use those people.
Yeah.
He can have contact information and stuff. So that was perfect.
And see, to me, if you're doing any kind of series and you're not weaving together, there's just a missed opportunity to me. If you're not weaving together past generations and iterations and things of that nature, there's something missing to me. And there's a lot of creative ways to do that. You know what I mean? And we've seen it happen in certain projects over others. But, to me, that just adds another level of nuance to it that makes it great. But I just wanted to say Phil Lamar's character, Mendor, he only got one moment. But if you paid attention, he was the Black Doctor that worked on King Randor. So you did get some new characters. They weren't meant to be the base of the story, but they kind of came in at different moments. So you get to see a Black Doctor, and his name is Mendor, right? To mend, right?
He mends. Yeah.
Remember, we're gonna call you, Dr. T, Doctor.
You see what I mean?
Just like we're gonna call Artisan, Artisaur.
No, it's like the G.I. Joe thing. Like, what was the Black Doctor's name? Doc. Doc or Stretcher, like, oh well,
Stretcher. Black guy.
But that's actually very consistent with the original He-Man naming method, which I like because it was real simplistic. We were kids.
No, I sound like Stan Lee naming some shit.
Yeah,
like you got to use the double, the PP or the LLs or hey, shout out to Fisto. That's such a double entendre.
Yeah, don't skip that next one right there, Dr. T. Because
with Harley Quinn.
Yeah, so Harley Quinn Smith, that is Kevin Smith's daughter.
Oh, okay. He named her Harley Quinn. Wow.
That's how much of a geek he is. He named his daughter Harley Quinn. So basically, if you've been following Kevin Smith, you've been watching this girl grow up. She's an actress now. I didn't know she voiced Queen Amelia, which would make her Randor's mother.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know she voiced that.
And He-Man's grandmother. Yeah.
Well, I will say this real quick about Harley Quinn. I actually liked Harley Quinn when they first brought her out, and there's no way they're going to keep her the way they did because it really goes against this feminist narrative. Because if you remember early Harley Quinn, she had a real destructive relationship with the Joker, and it worked. It made sense. But now they made her this super feminist heroine, and it's like, okay, I get why you're doing that. You don't want to tell little girls to be in abusive relationships, but the sad part is the character really worked like that.
Well, you got nowadays. I mean, they try to put her in a show where it's like ultra feminist, and she's in a relationship with Poison Ivy, and God,
exactly.
And on a side note, that show is so ass backwards to the characters, it doesn't make sense. Like, but go ahead, Artisan.
No, I was just gonna say initially that Joker Harley Quinn relationship. You have to remember Harley Quinn was only created. She wasn't created in the comic book. She was created in the cartoon. So initially, that relationship wasn't necessarily abusive. It was just Joker didn't really care.
No,
he would show a little or no care for her at times. Right. That was his girl, but he wouldn't have a problem pushing her ass out the way to escape Batman, right?
Including out of a window. But
moving out of a window. It wasn't until it got really into the comics that they really start playing up that angle and really start, playing with it a little bit more and introducing the abuse and them fighting and stuff like that. I didn't agree with that, which is I like Harley Quinn's initial introduction as a character, as being that counterpart to the Joker. I like that part. I don't like the slutty Gwen version. I don't really care for that one. And I don't really care about the Deadpool light version that they got out there now. That's all it is. Deadpool was hitting too hard. And I saw the change in the comic where they changed her from being Harley Quinn, how she was in the comics at the very least, where they threw in all the abuse and stuff and it wasn't working to make her interesting. And then they started pulling her away from the Joker. But Deadpool was hitting so hard that they just start making her like Deadpool. Yeah. That's all they did. They just start writing her like they're writing Deadpool. And Marvel and DC does that to each other all the time. Like, oh, you got something that's working? I'm going to take that.
But they did still have the air of abuse in the cartoon, because I think one of the most classic episodes was when she captures Batman using an old plan of the Joker's that he never quite could figure it out. He never quite got it. And the Joker walks in and finds out that she actually made it happen. And of course, Batman plays it up. And his response is Joker, because people forget sometimes, and I don't know why, the Joker's a maniac. And he's not supposed to be slapstick funny. He's serial killer.
Yeah, he's serial killer level, like mania. Like, that's why I say that at times with Skeletor in this, with Mark Hamill playing it, Skeletor seems like he's acting like the Joker, because the Joker is very nuanced. There is inflections and turns in his voice that happen that let you know you're probably in a bad place right now.
Yeah. And you better.
He will get completely dark all of a sudden. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Let me. Oh, go ahead, Charles.
It's kind of like the one thing, I know we probably got a little early. The one thing that I loved about this series, this season, is how you literally saw you literally saw the start of the villain. Is Skeletor initially evil, or was he forced to become a villain? Think about it. And for all these years, spoiler alert, if you're not a fan of this, HeMan's been fighting his uncle for 40 years. And you would, and when you listen to the story of Skeletor / Keldor, you're like, he might have a legitimate gripe.
Yeah.
And think about it. When you listen to the King Miro and Queen Amelia's conversation, that was hard. I mean, I did a review about it, but I was like, man, that hit me so hard because, being a child of the 80s, that's when you saw the breakdown of a lot of families. And children would hide in places and hear conversations they were never supposed to hear. And Miro was really conflicted. He referred to him, he's a part of me. And Randor thinks he puts the moon into the sky. Randor loved his brother.
He worshipped his brother.
He worshipped the ground his brother walked on. Just because his brother had blue skin, he didn't look at him any different. That was his heart. And when you see, they captured beautifully how sad they were. Randor's crying. And Randor, when he said Randor never even knew his brother still lived.
Yeah. I mean, Randor mentions him on his deathbed. But I wanted to go back to something, and I should say, Charles, those are my favorite villains. The villains that are either kind of right or the kind of villains that have a love for something that even they can't lie about. Those are my two favorite types of villains. And if you don't know what I mean by something they love that they can't lie about, go back and watch that Zorro with Anthony Hopkins. The villain in there who's actually in love with Zorro's wife, and kills the soldier that accidentally kills her, right? And raises the daughter of his enemy, but he doesn't see it as the daughter of his enemy. He sees it as the daughter of the woman he loved. And he actually raises her genuinely with love, but he's a villain. You know what I mean? Or if you go back and watch Amadeus, the whole story is really about the villain. It's not about Amadeus, but the villain is angry at God because despite all his dedication, God gave talent to this idiot.
Yeah, that's fool.
This effective idiot whose music is now going to be immortal. And so he's at war with God over that. And despite how much he hates this instrument of God's voice, he goes to every single performance that Mozart ever gives because of his love for the music. I love complicated villains like that.
So do I.
And that's what you got with Skeletor. But I do have to say, shout out to Alan Oppenheimer, who I understand is still alive. He was born in 1930, and he actually did make an appearance somewhere in the first or second season, but he is the classic voice of Skeletor. And you haven't you haven't heard
like a woman.
Yeah, you boob. You haven't heard anybody get dissed until you heard Skeletor talk shit about somebody.
Yeah, there ain't no trash talking in the cartoon world like Skeletor.
Like Skeletor, man.
You talk about abuse. You thought Joker was bad. God damn, Skeletor talking shit.
You could do a 30-minute montage of the old series of him just talking shit to He-Man, everybody.
But this is how good he was. They've actually started making memes and video clips off of old stuff from the 80s that Alan did as Skeletor. They just started doing it.
Yeah, see you next time.
One of the funniest memes they did. They said, and this is so wrong. They said, if you're a junior, at some point your mother moans your name, and they have what he's running away from. See you next time.
Yeah, they did one of those where they said something like 2030 is closer to us than 1980 something. I forget what it was, but it had me crying. But it was classic Skeletor, via Alan Oppenheimer. So shout out to him, because even though I like Mark Hamill, I heard a lot of Joker in it, and that's not to take away from it. He still did a good job. He did.
Right.
It's just I heard a lot of Joker coming out. And Joker is not the same as Skeletor, so I always got to give props to Alan for his performance.
Props to the original.
Yeah, man. But let me put the other one back on the screen because I don't think we finished. I just want to see if there's anybody else in the cast that I didn't. It's Stonar.
Yeah, Jason Mewes. If you know Kevin Smith, you know who Jason Mewes is. That's his Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. This is his buddy. He's gonna be in everything. That doesn't even matter.
So who was Badra?
I don't even remember who Badra was in the show. It's probably some little cameo character that popped up.
Let me see. Because it would seem like he would give him somebody
not really
familiar, but yeah, maybe not.
No, not really.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if they even have a picture of Badra, and I'm not even seeing one. So I guess he just gave his boy a check.
That's basically what happened.
Yeah, he just gave his boy a check.
He still got a check.
I don't even see a character in this.
Oh wait, Badra was the one with two heads. That's what Ridiculous Thought's talking about. The Too Bad character.
Oh, really? He was Too Bad? No, well, Too Bad's name is Too Bad though, but unless they or Two Face or Two Head, I forget what he. God damn it!
Yeah, I forgot what that character's name was too. I know he had two separate heads. They was arguing with each other.
Yeah, I thought it was Too Bad, but let me see. Maybe that's his. I don't know. Maybe that's his regular name or something. Yeah, actually, okay. Check his name. So Too Bad was the name of the Two-Face character, the two-headed character.
Mm-hmm.
But that he was named Too Bad as far as the character in the toy.
Badra is the purple one.
Oh, so he's one of the heads.
Yeah, he's the purple one. And Tavar is the blue one, even though their villain name is Too Bad.
Okay, so each head has their own name.
Who was the blue one?
So what is it? Starts with a T. Tavar.
Okay.
Yeah, Ridiculous Thought has it in the chat. Thank you.
Okay,
he broke it down.
Appreciate that Ridiculous Thought. Yeah. So Badra was half of the Too Bad character. Thank you. Tuvar. All right. Yeah. That's dope. All right. But that's it. That's as far as people I can recognize. I don't know if you guys know any of these other cats. But I think Stoner, I think that was the guy who turned into
Cam Clark, which is funny. Cam Clark was Man at Arms in the 2002 series.
Bring him back.
And I think he was HeMan in the New Adventures of HeMan.
Oh God, okay. Well, but Stonar, I think, is the guy. Wasn't that the toy that used to turn into like a comet or something? Because there is that character in the show.
I thought Stonar was the one that looked like a pharaoh that went up against Hordak, got his ass killed.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that character.
Yeah, but I think when I saw him, I was like, that looks like. Yep. Hold on, I found it. Let me go ahead and share it. So this was one of the toys from back in the day, and again, this had a lot of fan service.
Oh yeah, the rock people.
It turned into a rock.
The rock people.
Yeah.
This kind of shit we had to play with as kids, man. This guy
hey, man, look, I see that, and all I see is GoBots Battle of the Rock Lords.
Oh God,
the mighty GoBot,
Bodar, Granite.
But to actually have this character as a side character to just pop up on the screen again, a lot of fan service. You had to go deep into the lore to remember him.
And let's again shout out to Dave, to Keith David, because the snarkiness he said when dude tried to run up on him, he's like, I don't fight my own battles.
Yeah.
The hell, I'm a bad guy. like motherfucker, we'll fight fair.
Yeah,
we're villains.
He said, in every world we conquer, there's always a hero. There's always a champion.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You got the rock he turned into.
Oh man.
Boy, 80s was a beautiful time, y'all.
Yes, it was. It was a time of jive turkeys and all.
Hey, because we played with stuff like that and liked it.
But we had something you kids don't. It's called imagination.
Imagination.
Yeah, now they have toys that play with themselves. Like you just plug it up, or you push the button, and it does stuff, and you sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
But they do say there is research that suggests that kids playing with something and invoking their own imagination is actually better for them than them watching the toy play with itself.
Right.
And then sometimes the kids actually do play with themselves.
I knew I opened that door. I did messing with Charles.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the battering ram, man. Speaking of which, shout out to Ram. Speaking of which, shout out to Ram Man. Because
shout out to Ram Man.
Hey, he was kind of vicious in this one.
Oh yeah, he was.
He was kind of vicious in this.
He was vicious in the series in the season before too. And I so like it that everybody knows he's HeMan now. So it's like, okay, it's kind of like it takes a breath of levity off of him, and that's the reason why I don't defecate on season 2, because he actually had his father who wanted him to be the king so much. This is the esoteric part of HeMan is that he never showed how heroic he really was, and his father, out of all people, never realized who his son truly was and his character was. Right. He just thought he was this lazy, bumbling, slothful prince.
Yeah, and they come to terms with that in this series. So I mean, we can kind of loosely go over this in terms of the story narrative, but I say that because Artisan is already gone episode by episode. You did all of them, right, from this season?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so go to the Artisan MC channel and check out his live kind of reviews of each episode. So we don't necessarily have to do it surgically where we cover everything, but we can do kind of a generic overview of the story. Because I'll just say the Revelation series ends with a Black woman as man-at-arms, and Tila as finally stepping into the role of the sorceress. Everybody knows, as Charles said, that now Adam is HeMan, so now it's not a secret anymore. As a matter of fact, there's a point where Skeletor gets the power of Grayskull, and Evelyn gets the power of Grayskull. So they're kind of the first season they kind of cover a lot of that. So we start this second season with something that continues from the first that was so nuanced. I didn't even catch it at first, but they're going to hell basically to reclaim the souls of 2 of the characters killed in the first series, in the first season. And so was it Fisto and was Clamp Champ. Now, his toy came along after I stopped collecting, so I wasn't really as familiar with him by the time we saw him here. But their souls are in hell because Evelyn has basically destroyed heaven. And so they're going, they start with going into hell and fighting Scareglow to get their souls back. Anybody want to jump in on any of that? And, we just kind of move forward organically. It's up to y'all.
I like this part going into Subternia because I think they got into it in the first season, part 1, where they went into Subternia to understanding, like Vikings, they have a heaven that they ascend to, or they have a hell that they descend into. And I like the fact that it started off a kind of hero's journey in the sense where they started from the dark place of trying to rescue their friends and get them out of that place and get them to where they're supposed to be, even though there is no heaven now. It's been destroyed. Evelyn came in and wrecked shop. And when you told me that, Dr. T, I was like, damn, it was like that. She was just on one, just a flex. Like you said, she just on a flex. She just destroyed them. Like, why? Damn, she is evil.
She got the power of Grayskull and then she showed everybody on Eternia while she was doing it. She let them see it. She opened up heaven for you to look at and just destroyed it, right? and her goal was she was going to destroy the universe. She was going to destroy everybody in Eternia because she was so black pill. Like for
She
her,
was
there
a
was no
nihilist.
meaning. Yeah,
She
she
was
was
a
a nihilist.
nihilist.
There was no meaning. Everything was really a waste. Nothing was real, and
Right.
life did not deserve to continue. So she was just gonna. She wasn't even gonna commit suicide. She was gonna kill everything.
She was going to destroy everything, and people don't realize how powerful she was. She was already the sorceress of Grayskull when Skeletor took over the power.
Mhm.
Then added that she took on she became not only the sorceress but her own champion.
Yep.
So
And yeah.
she became ultra powerful, and it was like, yeah, it's time to dust the cobwebs out. When I mean cobwebs, I mean universe and planets. That little dusty stuff. So they get rid of that.
It's interesting because she actually starts by making a great point. She's looking at Skeletor, who has the power of the universe at this point. He's taken He-Man's power sword and he's got the power of everything. And all he wants to do is kill He-Man. And she basically looks at him like, you are so short-sighted, and she gets the power, and I'm waiting to see what she's gonna do with it. And she basically is like, I'm gonna kill everybody. And it's like, oh, what? So it was like, really?
One, I want everybody. I don't want one. I want everybody.
Yeah. I wonder if it's kind of an analogy to white women in society. They want power from white men, but what are they gonna really do with it?
Pretty much. And it's like, she was on one, and I mean, she like, it's we going on tour, and everybody gets a piece. We got a barbershop, we got 2-for-1 fade. Sit down and come get yours,
Everybody.
Everybody. And it's funny. What I did appreciate about season 2 of the Master Series, that is a beautiful artistic design, by the way.
Yeah.
I need a poster of that. Jesus. But it was funny because you had Teela go through her journey and really it kind of had to be the Teela redemption story for a minute, and I'll explain why. She was the most selfish out of everybody in that palace. She was the most narrow-minded, self-centered. She literally, yes, she was her own warrior, but even compared to Adam, when did she really make the big sacrifices? What was it was almost given to her. She was more of a royal than Prince Adam.
And the whole first season was her throwing a tantrum.
Yeah, exactly.
That was
mad at everybody.
That was the funniest part, Doc. It's not the fact that my best friend and the guy that I'm secretly in love with held the power of the universe together and stopped it, and from us being imploding within a gigantic black hole, and he died doing it for not because he wanted power, but to save everybody's life. And I'm mad because he kept the secret away that he could transform into a 7-foot-tall, 320-pound monster of muscle that you were lusting over anyway.
He lied to me. Yeah, that was the thing that bothered me about that first season in Revelations. It's like, that is so petty. That's some petty dumb shit. Like, dude, that is so petty. Like,
yeah, and I would get it. Like, Teela would be confused, but she would not be angry because she actually cared for him. And she would have understood why he kept it a secret. And shout out to Marlena, because Marlena was the heart of the family, by the way. Randor was so narrow-minded that he didn't figure out Adam was He-Man, because it's an old saying, and I call it the Clark Kent syndrome. People only see what their brains allow them to perceive.
Well, but there was a whole sub story where Randor and Marlena were pissed at each other because Randor was like, you knew our son was He-Man this whole time and you never told me. And so he was pissed at his wife for the longest, and then she got pissed back at him, but she never actually apologized for lying to her husband about their son. Like there's this part where they reconcile, they apologize to each other, and of course he has to initiate the apologies, because once they get Adam back and whatnot, he apologizes to his wife. But there's never a point. She apologizes, but she doesn't say why. She never actually says, you know what? I should have told you that our son was He-Man. I'm sorry for keeping that. You know what I mean? There's never that real point. So I always felt like, there was not, girls were never really taught accountability in these shows to me. It was just, he apologized, she cried and apologized. But I'm like, bitch, why are you apologizing? Can you say why?
Yeah, for what? Why are you apologizing?
You lied to your son, to your husband. At least tell him. But anyway.
The guy who keeps rescuing us. Yeah, that He-Man, man, I wish he was my son. Well,
exactly. Exactly. And shout out to Ridiculous Thoughts. He says Clamp Champ was supposed to become Man-at-Arms, and that was canon until recently. So, if you don't know, once Teela gets pissed at her family in the first season and leaves them, she starts hanging out with this black girl here, Andra. And they kind of give you the impression that there's a kind of a lesbian-esque thing happening between her and Teela. And so you had a lot of LGBT folk that were saying, they were pissed actually, because they were saying that you guys teased a lesbian relationship. And then by the time you get to the second season, completely pulled back from all of that. Right.
I'm not disappointed. I didn't want that shit. Because I would say it like this: you have it on two different hands, right? On one hand, you have the original fans of this shit pissed off because it does seem like pushing Teela in this LGBT direction,
right?
But then when they get to the second season, they've made the shift that Teela is back interested in Adam like she always was, and now you feel like you got Andrea at arms, sitting in the cold. So now the LGBT is pissed off because, well, you kind of led us in that way. Look, it's on both hands. The character was never that to begin with. Never was. And they tried to force it to make you happy and pissed off the actual fans of this stuff.
Yeah.
So just because you like that little bit in there didn't mean it had to stay, because it wasn't actually part of the character to begin with.
But it's questionable whether or not they would have followed through on it if there wasn't such severe fan backlash against the first season, because they shifted 180 degrees from second season to second one. But had they continued with where they were going, you never know. They could have ended up going there.
If they hadn't got backlash, I think it would have went that way. You would have saw it. You would have had a Legend of Korra type ending, that they hold hands and going off and having a good time.
Damn.
Because even in Revolutions, they still had it kind of there. And I pointed it out where Lynn is training Teela after she got her cow powers, right? Her snake powers, right? And they laying down there in the snow, and she's talking about how exhilarated she was. She never knew it felt like this or whatever. I said, man, is this a I turned you out conversation? Like this is female, introducing the girl to her own body kind of situation. I've heard of this conversation before, dude.
Shout out to them for also giving another fan service, because I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, they had the toy of the sorceress or the goddess who was green with the covert outfit.
Yep.
And they gave us that again, and I was like, you know what? Take my money. Take my damn money. Gotta have it.
That, like I said, they wove in. Now, if you remember, if you're a longtime collector, you remember the little books that used to come with the characters when you bought them.
The mini comics, the micro comics.
So they incorporated those, all the major series, except maybe Adventures of He-Man, which nobody was upset that they didn't include in any significant way. But they included so many, the live action movie, they tied it all in really well. Ridiculous Thoughts dropping more information. He said the artist modeled Andra after Michael Burnham from Star Trek. Now, I'm familiar with it, but I refuse to watch that whole series. But to my understanding, Michael Burnham was Spock's sister, black woman, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, but it doesn't surprise me they might have modeled her after that. But anyway. But they wove all of that together well. The problem was they just wove in all this unnecessary stuff. So the lesbian affair with Andra that was hinted at, all of that kind of stuff was thrown in. And then, of course, you can even see in the picture here. I mean, they're trying to make them as muscular as possible.
Yep.
And it was just, even Evelyn is buffed out in here. And you'll notice that they kind of tailored that back.
Yeah, you compare.
Oh, yeah, they did.
They weren't trying to pull that.
Man, they look like they about to go to the CrossFit games.
It jumping into the Tough Mudder, right?
If you look at the girls now, of course they're gonna have some muscularity or leanness to them. I mean, they're space barbarians. But look at her now, and I believe that picture right there of Andrea is the current one. She's very, even though shout out to them for giving her natural hair. It's like crazy because she's not as big and trying to be as buff. She's capable. She's still learning on the job, but she's capable, and nobody's upset with that.
Well, they made her more feminine, for the second season. They kind of toned down the hyper masculinity as far as women were concerned with Tila and Andra, and they kind of made them feminine. I can't find a good picture where you can kind of see the body design, but they did kind of tailor it back a little bit for this season, but not without centering the women in a very interesting way. So by the end of the first one, Tila becomes the sorceress, and she's the only one that can leave the castle, and she's kind of all powerful, and so they kind of go there. They take that to the nth degree in this one as well in the second season.
It did, but I'd say this: it looked awesome. I mean, I have my watch up on Patreon. You can see I'm watching that shit like, wow, that was awesome. Like, the way they brought it in, making her the tri-sorceress was interesting in the fact that being in the sci-fi or fantasy or whatnot and understanding when people combine different powers together. I like the idea of a character going on a journey to have to gain more power and learn their role better, right? Because basically you gave me a better hero's journey for Tila in this one than I got in the first one because I didn't watch the part, right? Yeah. So she had to go and learn something. It happened really quickly because it's only 5 episodes.
Well, I want to get there because there's some important things in that that I want to cover. Ridiculous Thoughts drops in. He says Tim Sheridan introduced the LGBT aspects of the story. And then also Sheridan introduced the idea of Randor being upset at Adam being He-Man. He wanted it to be an allegory for coming out as queer. I haven't heard these things, so I'm just putting them up in the discussion. So Dia Mishra also wanted Tila to be more independent. He says so. All of those, something to chew on with that. Where I wanted to kind of guide us a little bit. So the story starts, as I said, with them going to hell for the souls of their 2 friends. And when they come back, of course, King Randor is sick, and you find out he's been hiding a sickness for a little while from his son, and it is, he's dying from it, right? And so with that, what Tila does, who is now the new sorceress, she decides that there should be a heaven again, so that Randor, as a gift to Adam, Randor can actually have a place where his soul goes to. So she sets on the mission. This is her hero's journey, as Artisan was pointing out. She wants to recreate the heaven that Evelyn destroys. So that's her whole mission there. Whereas you have Hordak, you have Skeletor, you have all these other characters who are still trying to take over Eternia, and that ends up being more the rest of everybody else's battle. So you have these kind of multiple stories going on, and of course, Keldor is lied to by Hordak as to his own origins and whatnot. So there's a number of very interesting stories, all kind of packed together in 5 20-something minute episodes. So that kind of goes on. But there's an interesting discussion, right? When Tila has to figure out how to find the power to recreate heaven, she goes to talk to her mother's spirit, the original sorceress. And then from there, she's told to seek out Branimir, the dragon, right? And she goes there to find the secret of the power to do so. And she finds that there are 3 deities that created heaven, so to speak. And so she only has the power of 1, and she has to find the other 2. The Havoc power, the Havoc staff that Skeletor carries, and Ka magic, which is no doubt related to the snake men that you see in the 2000 series more in depth, King Hiss and all of that. You don't really see them in this one, which may be the next season if they do another season, or another part to this season. I don't know if there's going to be a part 2 to this season. I didn't know there was a part 2 to the first one until it happened. So
no, I think that there'll be a season 3, but I don't know if there'll be a part 2.
Because this is only 5 episodes, though.
Yeah, but who knows? If they follow the same suit that they did the first time around, then it could be another 5 episodes coming.
Could be, right? But, if they do, hopefully they'll include the Snake Men, because the 2000 series made that a big deal. And I didn't realize, even in the original series, the toy line, the Snake Men were a thing. They were actually a thing. We just never got to see it, see that dimension of it. But that said, she has to master so the second power she's introduced to is snake magic. And this is where what Artisan was saying about the discussion between Evelyn and Tila. It was really interesting because Evelyn is talking big shit. And she's trying to teach, Tila how to use this power, because it's not like Zoar. It's not a power of the higher nature. It's a primal.
It's a passion, yeah.
Primal kind of power that you got to get in touch with, and it awakens her sexual desire in essence.
Yeah, she get in touch with a Sith side.
Yeah. And Evelyn is telling her, she said, first of all, HeMan wants to tap this. He's always wanted to tap me. She is talking big shit.
Yeah, you jealous of the way he looks at me.
Yeah. And I was like, you damn right, because I'll show what anyway. But she says something else that I think is interesting. She says, you and your pride cost Randor the gift of seeing his son with his woman, becoming a family. She said, your pride cost him that, because she always treated Adam, even after even in the first series where she learns to really respect Adam, you don't ever see like a sexual attraction. She had that for HeMan sort of, but Adam, even when she came to respect him, she never really, it never really got beyond that. It was very childlike, innocent, holding hands kind of thing.
Yeah, he's just my little brother.
Yeah.
Kissing cousins or some shit. Like,
yeah. So Evelyn actually gets in her ass about it. And you could tell she's right. And I was surprised that they actually went there.
Yeah.
I
like that whole, once she went to see Granamir, and you see that Evelyn is there with Granamir, and she's actually nursing and healing him, because Granamir is dying too. He's dying. And she's there, like Charles was saying before, doing some hospice on him. She's sitting there healing the dragon,
right,
and taking care of him. When Tila shows up and is talking to Evelyn is giving her some game. She is really talking some real good shit. That was another scene in this show that writing wise was really good, because the conversation between Tila and Lynn and Granamir was a very interesting conversation, because you have people who have done terrible freaking things trying to find some kind of redemption for themselves. Especially Granamir. Like, Evelyn had to get in the dragon's ass when he was talking that crap to her. She's like, look, aren't you Granamir the such and such who plunged the whole universe into war and killed countless numbers of people? Like, what? Who are you talking to? She was really giving them the what for. And I was like, wow, just let them have it. Like, you're gonna be there to heal them, but don't think I don't know who you are and what you've done.
Right.
Talking crazy. So I like that idea that this character has done something horrific and realizes it, and is carrying the weight of that.
Yeah.
Right. It may be a bad thing to say, but I like the fact in the Marvels that Captain Marvel did something messed up to a planet full of other people being all on one, her period, whatever you want to call it, and then was carrying the weight of that. Felt guilty about it. To me, I like that.
I think we liked it because it was a break from what we've had with these boss chicks, with these Mary Sue characters. They're all powerful. They don't have to work for their power. They don't have to study for it. They just show up in the story and they know everything. And and they don't make any mistakes. They have to tolerate the stupidity of the men around them and the mistakes that the men make. So we're starting to see more complicated stories, and that even involves in this, not only with Tila, but even Andra. who's perfect, super genius black woman, but she makes some mistakes. I mean, she does the kind of COVID. She helps with the COVID, vaccine situation and
Techno biscuits
Eternia.
and the jab. Yeah.
Everybody gets so she makes a mistake and she has to find a way to reconcile with that.
Mhm.
So aside from the fact that, by the time they destroyed, democracy, she's in line to be the first president. It's like, God damn.
Yeah, that was helpful. That wasn't Hunger Game-ish, was it?
Yeah,
Yes.
they still double down on it even when they're apologizing for it, but that's
Mhm.
neither here nor there. Anyway, but so
Yeah, Donnie Mac the jab. Everybody was getting the jab in Eternia.
I was like, man, y'all going to the pandemic in Eternia?
Exactly. Look, that hit me hard when I saw it. I was like, wow, we going there?
We going there?
And they got communion. Like,
yeah, they did. They did. That old woman stood up straight. I said, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, the body and the jab. Like, wow, man.
But there were a lot of interesting sub stories. Right? What they did with this series is they suggested that technology and magic had been in conflict on Eternia for centuries. What it looks like. So even at this point, there is old technology buried deep in the earth because that's the history of Eternia. It's technology. And magic, I think, was tied to Skeletor's people, the Gar, right?
Mhm.
No, they were technology.
Yeah, the technology was the Gar. The Gar was more of the technology.
Yeah, but Eternia turned to magic, and I guess a lot of this war they had was magic versus technology, and they used Orko and Gwildor to kind of engage that as well. So their job is to upgrade the He-Man sword, and so you see them debating about magic and technology that whole time, which was a creative add to the story, I think.
Mm-hmm. It did add something because you had those two characters there that were able to speak on something that you could readily take right now out into the real world and understand what is the overburdens of technology in this world that we're dealing with right now, be it AI and stuff like that. And what is the burden on actually real stuff and not just everything is technology based. Everything is about that. You can see that conflict happening right now in your face, but here it is in the show where you can look at it like under a microscope and get those debates and those different opinions on it without actually having to be yourself involved in it. It just helps you think a little bit more about the situations you find yourself in, which I enjoyed. I mean, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Charles, anything you want to add on this before we move forward? I don't know if Charles can hear me.
You're muted.
You're muted, Charles. Yeah, you might be out of contact for a minute. All right. So Adam is faced with being the new king of Eternia, and he doesn't want to be because his father suggests that he can't be both He-Man and king, which is weird because there are comics with King He-Man, so that that was a thing in different iterations of the story, and maybe they'll come to that at a future time if there is another section of the season or another season, because that was never a conflict I was familiar with, but they made it one in this series. And so, with his father kind of, forcing him to choose, he ends up giving the crown to his newly, found uncle, Keldor, who turns out to be Skeletor, right? So, so you have that whole sub story going on, and Skeletor himself at this point, and this happens at the end of the first season, is kind of taken over by technology, which is run by Hordak. And if you don't remember, Hordak was really one of he was the primary villain of She-Ra back in the day, and he was always over Skeletor. We just never saw a lot of him. As a matter of fact, in the 2000 series, he was trapped in another dimension. And so, there were some stories about Hordak, and you got to see him a few times, but he wasn't central to He-Man's story. He was more central to She-Ra. So
yeah, that's what I'd always known about Hordak, is that where She-Ra is a different dimension, and that's why he was stuck there with her. That's why he was the villain for She-Ra and not necessarily He-Man. He-Man got to deal with Skeletor, but Hordak was locked in another dimension. In this, apparently, they just was on other worlds.
Yeah, he's taking over other worlds. Yeah.
Yeah, he just ain't bothered to come to Eternia and fuck with them yet because they still got He-Man and Castle Grayskull, and that's apparently the center of the universe for all that power. So he don't want to deal with that unless he could, take it over. He was going to work through other people as opposed to just showing up there himself and wrecking shop.
And they reveal that he's actually afraid of magic.
Yeah.
And he's deep off into technology because he fears magic. So there's, and Skeletor figures out how to balance the two.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up having just a well done fight, animation wise. I enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that. I liked the design of Skeletor once he figured it out, because Skeletor wants to prove he is a superior intellect, and they actually turned it around in this season for me, because Skeletor was being too much of a simp lapdog, whipping boy, that I wasn't liking that shit. I wasn't liking it at all. But sure enough, about episode 3, he turned it around. It's like, no, I'm going to prove I'm the superior intellect. The actual Skeletor parts are coming out like, no, I want to be a boss.
Oh man, so
I'm not somebody underling. I'm the boss.
But you're hearing this debate between William Shatner and Mark Hamill.
Exactly.
You're hearing really a trip.
It's really a trip. Like Kirk and Luke are sitting there having a conversation like, no, you could be more. You're the superior intellect. Why don't you prove it? Like,
yeah. Shatner was talking shit
in his own head. Yeah, he's a villain in his head. Like,
Shatner was talking big shit.
He was talking shit and being smug too.
Let me see. Ridiculous brings in. He says Hordak was He-Man's villain first. Mattel needed villains for the girls line, so they made Hordak She-Ra Skeletor. Yeah. Okay. Now this is an excellent question from Blood Boiling. He says, "Do you think they'll give Keldor a redemption arc, like Evelyn? Because he's not Skeletor."
No, he's not Skeletor. We in spoiler country, but no, he's not Skeletor anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, the Havoc staff kind of took him over in a sense, and Hordak did some little manipulations on his memory, so he didn't remember who he was.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always been the same person necessarily. That's just part of his personality. Like his whole Fight Club version of himself between Keldor and Skeletor, that's all it was. It's just him talking to himself. It's his memories. It's his memories talking to him.
But the thing is, now we didn't, like, we find out that he's forced to leave Eternia. He goes supposedly home, and then there's a war going. We didn't get a lot of detail between, as to what motivated him. You just see him on the ground crying.
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, Hordak he went back to Gar, and by the time he got back there, Hordak was there. Hordak took that place over and destroyed and killed everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So he's kind of broken in a sense, but then Hordak takes him in, like Thanos taking in Gamora, and trains him. And kind of, puts him up to some bullshit and grabbing that Havoc staff, but also in the little clip that most people miss, me and Charles were talking about it and saw it. You see what Hordak actually used him for. Hordak used him to get into the castle and steal Adam's sister, his twin sister. Now
you saw the animation where you don't even see the baby in terms of Hordak's like triceps.
You see his back. Yeah, you see his back. You see his arms cuffed. You see him grinning. And then for a quick minute, they flash inside the room, and you see Keldor, Randor, and Queen Marlena there holding a baby. So he didn't steal Adam, obviously.
Right.
He took something else. Right. So that's how it's put in there, but it's not said. It's just shown real quick, and then it cuts out of there. But
I think there's some licensing issues with She-Ra.
Yeah, that's what Charles was telling me, that there was some licensing issues with I forget the name of the company, with She-Ra or using She-Ra, and I wasn't aware that there wasn't. I thought Mattel owned all of that shit. Lock, stock, and barrel, but
it's all over the place, but if they can get it back in time, they can actually do a whole nother arc around She-Ra, because you notice you didn't even see She-Ra in the 2000 series. You know, she kind of disappears as far as the movies, the animated work, all of that after the 80s. She doesn't really, until they released that separate She-Ra cartoon that I watched once and was sickened by. But
Yeah.
you know,
That's probably what it was. Somebody probably bought that license when it came up to buy. Somebody probably took that shit.
oh, Ridiculous is dropping it, man. You might have to come up and join the discussion. He says DreamWorks owns She-Ra.
DreamWorks. Oh, that's Disney. Jesus Christ.
Oh well,
they ain't never getting that shit back. Get that shit back.
But they kind of doubled down a little hard for a character they can't get back, because at the end of the series, that's her.
Yeah, that's what Charles was telling me. I had forgotten about that. I remembered the Hordak Prime character, but I had forgotten about that character being Adam's sister. I'm forgetting her name, Adora.
Adora, yeah,
right. That basically Hordak took her and raised her.
Yeah,
like you're talking about with Zorro. Mm-hmm. In the Zorro movie, he took it and raised his enemy's child and made it his daughter. Like, wow,
he didn't do that shit out of love at all.
No, he wasn't. It was out of some straight hate. Like,
yeah,
it's gonna be my little hate seed right here. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So but I'm curious to know. It would be an interesting story to see them added in this particular iteration of Masters of the Universe. But they really done a lot of doubling down on the feminine principle in the first series, because you had like 4 girl bosses in the first one. You had Andra, you had Tila, you had the Sorceress, and you had Evelyn.
Yep.
And they really kind of took over the story in the first season.
That was their story. That's what it was. That was the point that I had brought up when I watched that first season. That was my point that I was hitting on. Is like, it doesn't say He-Man and Masters of the Universe. Right. It just says Masters of the Universe, and that's everybody else but He-Man.
And I think the reason so many of us took issue with that is we were looking at it beyond just He-Man. We were looking at it as, in popular media and in society, there's a serious assault against masculinity going on. Even in the academy, the labeling of masculinity as being synonymous with toxicity. This is something men are experiencing, boys and men are experiencing across the board, in education, in employment, in popular media, you name it. This assault on masculinity. And so it wasn't like Masters of the Universe was different from other things in that respect. I think it was just reaching a fever pitch where men were finally responding in a way that I'd not seen in 40 years.
Yeah. I would agree. It would that was really one of those crest points. Like, we're really tired of this shit.
Yes.
We are really tired of this. And for me, it's more of a surprise because it's the geek audience, which is usually outside of the real, kind of lunatics in a sense.
Yeah.
But these are the regular geek audience.
Yes.
That are usually kind of passive on shit.
Yes.
Voicing their concerns like, hell no. What is this? No.
See, that's interesting you say that, because one of the things I noticed like 5 years ago with the geek audience, you would see some girl boss shit and the guys would explain it because they would stay within the context of the story. Mm-hmm. So we would be saying, well, you got these characters that are being introduced, and the writers and DEI culture and all this stuff is happening behind the scenes. But a lot of the geeks would say, well, still within the context of the story, she's powerful because she found the crystal. And it's like, and there would just be this partition between the two. It looks like in the last couple of years, you started to see the geeks calling it out, as you say. Mm-hmm. And I think it came to a head with He-Man. It was so blatant.
Yeah.
In the first season that it got to a point where people were just like, no, this is direct, it's targeted, and people don't understand the impact it actually ends up having on boys. Mm-hmm. Because I said this years ago. I said when my son was 12, 13, he was telling me he had never seen a boy be better at anything than a girl in any medium. Right. Girls were better, smarter, more capable in everything. Up to that point in his life, he had never seen a boy beat a girl at anything in media.
Right.
And I said, you have no idea what you're doing to your boys.
Yeah, that speaks to some psychological damage right there, because Angry Man did a good explanation of this and why it's important for boys to see themselves
Yes.
in heroes and stuff like that is that it gives them something to aspire to because they
Yes.
they want to be like this. It's an ideal for them.
Yeah.
Right. For females, it's something that they want to slip into because they just can be. But it's important to have both of those. Boys need it just like girls need it. You can't. One of the things that's so crazy about this culture is they overcorrect each direction. They don't know how to find the balance in between them because it's always an overcorrection, completely one way or completely the other. You can't have it, the pendulum swinging so ridiculously both sides. You got to try to ride it in the middle somewhere. And we always hear that in our political conversations, but you never really see it anywhere.
Yeah.
You really don't see that. Okay, we have the middle of the road, balanced perspective on this. No, you don't. You don't, because the person saying this balance is the one on the opposite way, on the fringe of the opposite side, talking about they're trying to be centrist. It's like, no,
you're not.
You got a ways to go before you get there.
Well, people don't know that when it comes to toys, animation, and even sports, this is the beginning of boys' hero's journey.
Yeah.
It starts with this. The call to your hero's journey for a lot of us started with watching these stories. And it's been different for every generation. It might have been cowboys and Indians for my father's generation and whatnot. But you still have this call to action. And on the outside, it just looks like a lot of fighting and action. But really what it is it's the call to your hero's journey. And the first stage in that for boys is confronting fear.
Yep.
And learning how to overcome fear for something bigger than yourself, whether it's protecting, well, eventually it's to protect your family, to protect society. But these things start individually for little boys when it comes to, confronting your fear. I'll tell you quick story. A neighbor of mine, he's a football coach for his son who was in, what do you call it? It's not Little League, that's baseball, but Pop Warner. So his son was playing Pop Warner football and he was a good running back, right? And so at one game, his son wasn't performing that well. And he was like, he pulled him aside and said, well, what's going on? If you want to sit it out, that's cool. If you're tired, and he said, no, I'm actually scared of one of the guys on the defense. And at that moment, his father said, now you got to get back in the game.
Right.
I was going to let you sit down if you were just tired, or whatever, give you a little break. But if it's fear, now you got to confront it.
Yeah. We're getting over this.
We've been over this. And he made his son continue to play until he just blew by the dude and overcame his fear. And so that's really what we're talking about when we talk about these cartoons, these comic books. We're talking about the early stages of a boy's hero's journey. And if you remove that and downplay it from a society, you can't be mad when the boys have no desire to be men.
Yeah. Or
it sounds like it sounds like an oversimplification, but really it is the beginning stages of manhood.
Yeah, it is. I mean, confronting yourself, confronting your fears, confronting your bully, taking part in your own version of a hero's journey is part of having manhood. I think it's part of being a person in general, but manhood especially. You have to do that because if you saw a 50-year-old man who still was burdened by a bunch of fear, would you consider
Yes.
Would you consider him a man?
I mean, you tell me.
He couldn't stand up for himself. What would you call him?
I'll do you one better, man. You've been in a situation where you've heard a bump in the night and your woman's looked at you to fix it.
Yeah.
What happens between you when you say, no, I'm too scared, you go do it?
Yeah.
What's the dynamic? What happens in the dynamic then?
Well, right? In a comical sense, that's when you're going to get divorce papers the next morning.
Hey, real talk. But
Bruh,
you can't.
No, it's not that. You
can't
got to get it up. You might be afraid, but you're going to have to find it in yourself to push past that fear and get stuff done, scared or not.
Yes.
I'll use this short story really quickly, but a lot of people see me as not having a fear about things, and I might not like big spiders and shit like that, right? But in my household, I didn't have the option of being afraid because I was the oldest and I was the man of the house.
There you go.
So my mother could be afraid. My younger brother could be afraid.
Yes.
I might have been afraid, but I don't get to be afraid because I'm the one that got to go deal with this damn thing.
Exactly.
I'm the exterminator.
Exactly.
So I had to push down that fear stuff and actually go handle business. I don't get to be afraid of that stuff.
Yes.
I went through the same thing when it was my son, to teach him that lesson. I may not like snakes. I may not. Childhood phobia, all that shit, right? Because somebody put a fucking boa constrictor on me and I wasn't ready for that shit. When my son wanted to go to Marine World, if California, you know what Marine World Africa USA is. He wanted to go to Marine World, and they start bringing out these animals, and he wanted to go see the animal that they're bringing out so he can go touch it. And he come running over there and taking me over there with him. What is it? A fucking snake.
Yep.
He ain't afraid. Daddy, touch it.
The one thing I don't want to do.
But what did I do? I didn't tell him no. I start petting that damn snake.
Yes.
I had to push through it.
Yes.
You have to push through that fear as a man. One of the things I tell people nowadays, especially, is fear is limiting. So you should learn how to fear less things. Not have no fear. You need to have it. It's a survival mechanism. You have to have it, but you have to learn how to fear less. You can't fear everything. You just fear less stuff.
Well, it's important because fear is not the same as what it is you're afraid of.
Exactly.
That is a critical difference. And I'm gonna tell you who covered that well. It was actually Will Smith in that movie he did with his son.
Yeah.
Which nobody seemed to like, but I thought it was actually quite brilliant.
Yeah, I love that movie.
It was brilliant. After Earth was brilliant when it comes to the hero's journey. That's what all these swords represent. I mean, yes, I'm into geek culture, but don't get it twisted. All of this is tied to the hero's journey. Yeah. See, I see you, right?
Had to put my side blades up there. I got to catch up again.
But it was, but Will tells him in the film, fear is not the same as what it is you're afraid of. You know, you do need to be aware of the outside world and what it is you're afraid of. But fear itself, outside of alerting you to things, it really doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, danger is real.
Danger is real.
But fear is not.
Is not. And that is something boys have always needed to be initiated into. And there's at least two reasons. I mean, one is what we pointed out. Protection comes from those who've been trained and fire hardened into pushing past their fear, right? You really don't get protection unless you've been able to do that. And it's been boys and men traditionally that have set up those kinds of mystery schools, those initiation programs where we learn to get past fear. And that's just one step of that program. But the second reason that we learn to overcome, what was it? What was I saying? There was two reasons to do it. One is for the work of protecting, and the second reason, oh crap, it was just on the tip of my tongue. Damn it, I lost it. I was talking about initiation over fear for men. And, protecting the family is one dimension of it. Shit. I apologize. It'll come back. But it's incredibly important and it needs to start in childhood. It's not something you need to start at 40 years old, 30 years old. It's too late.
No, you have to start that as soon as your child starts, to me, as soon as your child starts walking, understanding language, and can actually speak back a little bit, the first time you're going to get it is when they run into something. The first time they fall down, the first time they're afraid to go into something. You're going to have to talk to them and have that conversation as a man. And it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. You're going to have that conversation with them about conquering that fear.
Yes.
Because it works the same way with girls. Girls get afraid of other girls. Bullying them, talking about shit. Talking about how they look and their body and shit like that. Where do you think all that body shaming and body positivity shit comes from? That comes from girls on girls. Guys gonna like your body regardless. It kind of don't matter. Don't matter. Okay, so it's always about other girls doing that shit to them. Other girls, if you understand, you went over it with your reporting on bidirectional abuse in couples and stuff like that, about how the LGBT get down with abusing each other. It's brutal, dude. It is some brutal shit. I didn't even know that until I talked to my friend who was a lesbian. And she was a social worker, caseworker working with this stuff, telling me that shit. I was like, what? Are you serious? I never hear that. No, she's telling me because she's working with it. She's making these reports and dealing with these people and getting them help for this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, hell no. Y'all need to speak up.
Yeah. And one of the benefits to actually having a father figure walk you through this and even put you on trial to make sure you've mastered this, as opposed to us, because a lot of us had to do it ourselves. Generation X, a lot of us had to figure this shit out ourselves. And you know, if you've had a father, you know, that process is a little different, as long as he's functional. You know, he's not an alcoholic that's beating on you or something. But if you had a functional father, he kind of walked you through something that many of us had to kind of figure out ourselves, or some variation in between. But you know, the thing about it is you do have to learn it young, because if you don't and you haven't seen it, when you do have a family, there are moments when your family, most particularly your woman, will look to you to handle things, and you have a short window to maintain her respect before. Now here's when you know you've lost it, when she says, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yep. Yep.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Might as well pack.
You have a short window to prove and dim, and this is why women put you through shit tests. Like they want to know, can you handle it? Now I do think the shit tests have metastasized into some kind of strange cancer in this culture we live in now. Yes. But on a fundamental, primal human level, a woman is going to test you because she wants to know if you can handle it. And that might not even be something she can explain verbally, but that's women's nature. They're going to test you. The thing is, once you've proven yourself, you know, some groups of women still will not give you the respect you've earned.
Not them Klingon women.
They keep trying to compete with you for it.
Yeah,
right? You know?
Not them Klingons. Oh, no.
This is why brothers are going to other countries where you pass the test once and you're good. You know, I should, you know, if I'm slaying the dragon for the princess, I don't want the princess, you know, once her dragon is slayed, she's finding another castle to hide in and have me fight another dragon every 5 damn minutes. Like,
yeah, Peach.
You did it once. I proved myself. Come on, let's get this going. But anyway, but that's the importance of it, you know. And so I just wanted to kind of put that in context, because I know some people are like, okay, you know, I talk about a lot of serious shit on my channel, and now we're talking about geek stuff, which I love, but there's a reason that I love it. There's a reason that it was such a huge deal to me as a child, because for me, a lot of my, you know, coming to grips with reality started with watching heroes overcome huge obstacles. Right. Exactly. And so my obstacle may have been a dark room as a little kid and being afraid of the dark. Or like you said, it might have been a snake in a zoo that's less likely to bite you than something in nature. Right. But you still had to overcome it to get to the next stage. Yep. And that's where our boys get that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've had to go through it with my son. I've had to go through it with my daughter, of actually challenging them on their fear and trying to teach them how to endure or rise to the occasion, so to speak. Because my daughter had it. My daughter had it. My son had it. It's just something in people. You will have those fears, and some of them are irrational. Most of them are irrational.
Most of them are. Yeah. You
just have to, you know, understand what it is and conquer it, because it's better for you if you can. That's just it.
The stages, you know, the stages of growth. You know, the hero's journey. You know, for the hero, it's conquering the villain. For us as human beings, it's really conquering yourself. It's conquering the things, the limiting thoughts that you have within yourself. And there are many stages of it. Conquering a fear is the first one. I'll give you one more. And it's what we call discernment, right? The capacity to look at a situation and see it for what it is, and not what you fear it is, hope it is, think it is, what other people told you it was. To see a situation for what it is. Right. So instead of, you know, so somebody can walk up to you and say something, and, you know, you might have an emotional response like, that dude was dissing me. He was talking shit. He was doing this or doing that. And I think he was, because I heard him talking shit about someone yesterday. And then my friend said he was talking shit about someone. What did he actually say?
Exactly.
This is key to manhood. I need to look at the situation for what it is. And the reason I need to do that is because everyone in my care, this might be a life-death situation. I need to know what is actually happening beyond fears, rumors, random thoughts, what someone else said, he said. Yeah, no, discernment. I need to know. These are the things that boys have been initiated into for centuries, right? And so now we've gotten into this mode of saying, well, you know, gender is irrelevant. Everything's interchangeable. Nothing really matters. But then when men don't play the role that women have socially come to expect from them, even this generation of women are further angry. They're angrier, I should say, at men for not playing the traditional role. So we've beaten the tradition out of the men, and then now they're angry that the men are not traditional.
Yeah, there's no tradition there.
They want to cherry pick what you should know, but that's not how this works.
Yeah, that's not masculinity. You don't. For me, I would say this: that females do not get to choose masculinity. Just like I told my daughter with her boyfriend, her second boyfriend, you cannot relieve him of his masculinity.
No.
When it doesn't suit you, or you don't feel like you want to be that damn feminine, you can't do that. He has to be a man of himself, because not only, him being a wet noodle might be fine for my daughter, but it ain't fine for me watching that shit. Oh hell no, he losing respect in my eyes.
Well, and it ain't fine when a situation comes up where he's needed in a way that he can't provide because he doesn't know how.
He can't perform.
What a lot of this is with people wanting to pick and choose manhood. It's kind of like if you walked up to a car, you lifted the hood, and you're going to throw away everything you don't like in there. Well, I keep the engine because it looks good, but we don't need this weird thing. I don't know what that is. So that's a carburetor. It doesn't matter. We don't need it. We don't need an axle. We don't need this. We don't need, just tossing things away that you don't like because of the surface look of it. But then you want to know why the car doesn't run.
Right.
You want to know why it doesn't start.
It actually makes it work.
And now you're walking and you're angry at the car for everything you did to it. And now we've reached the point where the boys and many of the men are walking away from all of it. They're walking away.
And that is part of it. I don't know. I go back and forth between like they get what the hell they get, and you need to stop it, or it'll be the death of everybody. I vacillate between those two positions at times, because sometimes I am cynical enough to just say, well, whatever. Yeah, they get what they get. If you're not finding what you want out here, that's your fault because you didn't make it. You don't like it, talk to your mama. Because that's just what it's going to be. But at the end of the day, I understand. I have a daughter, I have a granddaughter. I might want them to be able to find what is a man and not just a male in this world at some point.
Exactly.
I want that shit. Right. So what needs to happen to make that a reality for her? I mean, something's gonna have to change.
We have to understand the division of labor between the genders has always had a base to it. There was a rationale. You didn't wake up one day and just decide that, women should be, sweeping the floor at home and men should be out killing bears. I mean, the reality is, on a very primal level, if a woman is pregnant, she's extremely vulnerable. Physically, men don't go through changes in regard to her pregnancy. Now, we can argue about emotional eating and things of that nature, but for the most part, in terms of nature, when a woman is pregnant, which is when she is at her most vulnerable, I mean, even just from the birth itself, she's vulnerable. This is throughout time, giving birth has been a life-threatening endeavor.
Yes. Life or death moment here.
And it goes crazy after the age of 30. It just gets, BGS, he still scares the hell out of women when he tells them by the time you hit 30, I think he said you got 10% of your eggs left. Like, he's not playing. This is real, but there's a reason men don't go through physical changes. At the end of the day, you're able to shelter life in the kids you've already had, the kids that's coming, because physically you don't go through those changes while she goes through that. There's a division of labor that takes place. And we want to dismiss that because we're in a society where technology, has granted us so much that we think we can kind of disassociate from gender roles until the shit hits the fan on one level or another. And I take you back to the beginning of the pandemic where people were in grocery stores fighting over toilet tissue. It was women, other groups of women were in the stores with their men, and the men were fighting over toilet tissue. And I kept hearing stories about Black women who were there in the stores waiting for them to stop and hoping there was something left. Now, it's kind of an analogy, but you get my point.
Yeah, it was their solo dolo. Like, what happened to the strong and independent? Oh, you're the only one out here without a protector. You were really uncovered.
Yeah, when life pushes back, this non-traditional thing that we've been trying to do doesn't work. And so when we get back to how we're being programmed, we always have to measure it against what's practical and what's real. Now, taking it back to Masters of the Universe, they tried to balance it this time. The first season was about, the quote unquote hero's journey of Tila. And we can say that they didn't do it right. And they had a lot of a lot of feminist investments that kind of subverted what they were doing. In this one, they try to do it where Tila and Adam go through a rite of passage of sorts, and they both evolve to another level of He-Man and Sorceress.
Yes, they did.
Do you want to talk anything about that as far as that?
Yeah, I thought that part was interesting, that Adam had to own his position as being the king of Eternia for a minute and try to step into that role, even though he loved his father and didn't see his life as wanting to supersede his father. He didn't see himself as being good enough as his father. He did eventually try to step into that role. Tila went through her own journey, which was accepting that, she is the sorceress's daughter and accepting what it means to be the sorceress and actually gaining new power to try to give these people who passed in Eternia their eternal reward, so to speak. She had to become the embodiment of all these powers and actually take them all on for herself, which was a very epic scene for me, to just do something good. But at the same time, as she's doing this, she had people rally around her and fight to protect her while she fought to do something good for her champion being He-Man or whatnot. And that, in a sense, they got to combine all of those powers together for them to actually become in some kind of union with each other, as opposed to, how it is in the Black culture where you just need to be fighting with each other. They actually became in some union. Because in a sense, like Tila's armor, if you look at her Tri-Sorcerer's armor, it got versions of the cats and stuff on it. I said, so what, does she become Battle Cat now? Because Battle Cat makes the joke about that. Like Cringer makes the joke, like, all these years, all you had to do was hug me to change. Like, you have to hit me with the beam. You could have just gave me a hug, bro.
Right.
Yeah. But that's what it was, that they actually came to some kind of union together to actually fight together, as opposed to fighting against each other or running in different directions of the day. So I thought it was pretty good and pretty powerful. And for me, it still struck on the Thor Jane Foster thing. But but when Thor, kissing in the tree. I mean,
oh God, yeah, they went there. They did go there. Childish as it was, they did.
It was funny. I mean,
but we see the leveling up, right? And it's interesting because He-Man's new design is based off of the animated Netflix series that came out at the same time as Kevin Smith's.
Yeah, it came out right after. I didn't even watch that one because, like I said, He-Man had a bad taste in my mouth after part one. So I didn't even I understood that there was another show coming out for He-Man that wasn't the Kevin Smith directed one, but a different show. But I didn't even watch that one either.
I tried to. I think they were aiming for a younger demographic with that one, so it was just a little too kiddie for me. But even the animation was very much more to appeal to kids, I think. But I still was impressed that Kevin Smith's series even brought in the aesthetic from that. So He-Man's new uniform kind of brings in elements of that. And then there really is no explaining the sorceress. I mean, aside from the green goddess that you had to read the mini books to know about, it kind of took her to another level. So out of the three, so they were saying there were three deities,
right,
that granted the power to create this heaven and Eternia, and she had to find the power of each one. She didn't actually meet the deities, but she found the relics that embodied their powers, which was usually a staff.
Right.
And she had to bring those three staffs together, and it changed her and made her into something. So they're trying to bring in a feminine hero's journey and matched it with He-Man. And and there's this moment when they finally go through this huge transformation where both of them, are upgraded, as it were. And He-Man says something along the lines of, well, you go save heaven and change the universe, and I'll go stop Skeletor. And it was just kind of like, y'all keep finding ways to kick men in the
right
in the groin. It's like, really?
In the loincloth, man.
Yeah. Y'all keep finding ways to slightly, I mean, it was blatant last season, but this time wasn't so blatant, but it was still, yeah, we're better than you.
It was still there a little bit, because it makes it gives it a little bit that his battle is not as important as her. She has to recreate Preternia.
Right.
He has to fight Skeletor.
Right.
So he has a physical battle. She has more of a spiritual or, magical battle, which I kind of like, because that was their arc in the story. Teela wasn't on a physical journey. She was on a mental one in some senses. Adam was on a different journey where his foes were going to be more physical. He was more equipped to deal with that. So it made sense why they were doing what they were doing. I would have liked to see that Teela did not keep all those powers at the same time, that she probably shouldn't have been able to keep all of those powers at the same time, because it should have been too much for her.
They didn't really explain it well. I mean, it was too much for her until Adam, and then he brings the sword, and so
she couldn't bring it together until he helped her, giving her a little bit more of that gray skull, right? So
it's kind of unclear. The sorceress, the two extra powers, Adam, He-Man. It's like, okay, now they're two upgraded deities, but we still don't know what that upgrade actually means. And some clarity would be nice if they continue to go forward.
Well, what it shows, like has been shown in Marvel, when they want to introduce a new female character, they just give them power to rewrite reality. Is basically what it is. That's what the power that they want to have.
Yeah,
to rewrite reality and change it to whatever the heck they feel like it should be at that moment.
Exactly.
So in this situation, it worked. She had the rainbow effect, making Preternia all over again.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Cool.
Which they revealed was actually for everybody, right? It wasn't just for the heroes, but it was kind of a Valhalla for everybody. And so, and that's a whole nother level, right?
It is.
You create heaven for an afterlife for everybody, and he stops Skeletor again
from trying to destroy all of that, which wasn't a bad fight. I mean, He-Man and Skeletor going at it was good. I still like the Hordak and Skeletor fight a little bit better, but I did Skeletor's upgrade when he start understanding, like, he got the glow and he gonna merge all these powers together. He was looking boss level. I'm like, I like this Skeletor, dude. He got multiple hands like an anime character. I'm like, dude, this is a problem.
Oh man, shout out to Donnie. Appreciate the support. He says the warrior witch dynamic is more appealing to their agenda than the king queen dynamic. Get that. Get that. I've been talking about this for years. There was remember when they used to have oh man, oh goodness. What is his name? Man, he was a popular figure, Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley used to do a State of the Black State of the Black Union at least every year. And one year he had Julia Hare on there. And you can find this clip on YouTube. And shout out to Julia Hare. I have no issue with her. She's since passed away due to Alzheimer's. So respect to her. She said something in that in one of those unions that I thought was interesting. She was talking about the power of the Black woman, goddess, the universe. And then she said, and the Black men, the warrior. And this goes to what Donnie's bringing up. I think there's been a pull away from the king queen dynamic, because the queen warrior dynamic gives, Donnie's talking about the warrior witch, but I'm shifting a little bit. What I see happening, especially with some of these Black feminists, when they do want to kind of nod to men in some kind of way, they try to entice us with the queen warrior dynamic, which is kind of like a beehive. It's a queen drone dynamic. The queen is in authority. The drone serves her interests. That's very different from a king queen dynamic. where she has an equal, if not someone who's beyond her,
Right.
that gives her directives at various points in time. You don't get that with a drone. A drone never gives the queen directives. He doesn't give her any. So I think those are the two, some of the competing paradigms that we see.
Yeah, that's what was jumping out to me about this one, that it was blatant in a couple of characters, one being Motherboard and Skeletor, and then Tila, Sorceress, and HeMan. It's a dom and a sub situation. She's the dominant one. She's the one who's giving orders to this beefcake dude or whatever to go out and do her bidding. It's like, okay, they still kind of simps. Like, he gave up his title just so he could be just down there with everybody else, following orders.
We can actually compare this to the Star Wars trilogy that shall not be named. What we can talk about is, because a lot of people didn't notice in that trilogy, in my humble opinion, there was a kind of battle against two competing paradigms. There was a patriarchy and a matriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
The empire was the patriarchy. First, it was under, what's his name? Damn it. The emperor.
Snoke. First, it was under Palpatine.
First, it was under Palpatine, then under Snoke. It was unapologetically a patriarchy. It had a military structure. Mm-hmm. If you look at the rebellion in the 70s, the rebellion was just a mix of people fighting for freedom. Mm-hmm. In the last trilogy, they were mostly led by women. It was a matriarchy, and you saw that in the second one, where the pilot is checked by the women who are running things, including Leia, and they're kind of talking about how brave he is. I forget what the name of the pilot is, but anyway.
Poe Dameron.
Yeah. Poe Dameron, thank you. See, that's why I can't talk about these things unless Artisan is here, because I ain't gonna remember the details. But there was this kind of patriarchy versus matriarchy element to the Star Wars trilogy. And of course, the matriarchy wins out because it's more humane and masculinity is inherently toxic. You have something similar happening here, but slightly different. I mean, it's not so much with Randor, even though at the end of the series, the monarchy is broken down and now it's a democracy that they hint is going to be led by Andra, the black woman in the series. But even on the larger scale, you kind of had Hordak and this patriarchal structure really versus the sorceress and the kind of structure beneath her. He-Man is her drone. He's her champion, right? So you have all of these men that are involved, but they function under this matriarchal figure. And you can kind of see the tensions between the two. We keep coming back to what I think is emblematic of this era. You have these competing dynamics of matriarchy versus patriarchy. And matriarchy is always presented as more humane and, more loving, more humanistic. And patriarchy is always kind of framed like some kind of remnant of Nazi Germany. Like, just
which is bush. Look, I can say this. Y'all know I love my mother, right? But she said this herself. It was a benevolent dictatorship. Mm-hmm. There is no strong men in the matriarchy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've been black and grown up in a single mother home. You understand that shit very clearly.
Yes, sir.
It's very clear. It is very clear. Matriarchy is not more kinder, gentler. No. Nah, bro. That's not how it works. There is no checks against that shit. You think Evil Lynn went bad when she had the power of Grayskull and just destroyed heaven? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, there's your matriarchy right there. That's what happens when you have all the power.
You got that right.
Split it with nobody.
Just destroyed everything.
Yeah, just everything. Everything got to go.
Because she was feeling it in that moment.
Yeah, that's exactly. All it was. That moment she was feeling it. Second season, she's like, you know what? I feel kind of bad.
That's what she said too.
She feel kind of bad.
I shouldn't have done that.
Treated me the way I wanted to. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Can we make Can you fix it? Can you fix it? I can't fix it, but can you fix it?
See, the funny part is Skeletor, all he ever wanted to do was kill He-Man at any point, whether he had the power or not. And if you asked him after it's all over and done, if he had killed He-Man, he wouldn't have regretted it. But she was just feeling at any different point. She was feeling things, and then things happened, and then she was like, "Oh, maybe I
triggered." She was triggered. He was all focused on him and not her. Like, really, I destroy all this shit.
No, that is deep. No, that was deep because I rewatched the first season the other day and I realized a lot of her frustration at Skeletor, and she said it, was because he didn't pay her enough attention.
Yep.
And
That's what
we
I
are
got from
in,
the first season. Like, wow, okay.
yeah, she flipped out and took the power from him and was going to kill the universe because partially one of the major reasons is he never paid her enough attention. And we are in this era of social media. How much of it is about women and attention?
Mhm.
Tell me. Right?
Exactly. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it is. I mean, their inflated sense of ego, their cries and complaints about what they're not getting and all that is, and even to the point of complaining about passport bros and stuff like that. That's about women not getting attention.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
of it's about that.
when Evelyn, when she first points out that Skeletor is small-minded because he's only fixated on He-Man, I was like, that's an excellent point. That was an excellent point. But then she kept talking. Her frustration was not that he was small-minded per se. Her frustration was because He-Man got the attention and not her. So she had a brilliant point, but the motivations for it were about her self-esteem.
Well, here you take it another level up, Dr. T. What is KK's frustration? Why is her frustration on destroying Star Wars? Because George Lucas was really focused on that. Men with a drive and an agenda are focused on their goal. What is a danger to any man that's focused on his purpose? A woman that thinks he needs to be focused on her.
Damn. You know what's cold about that, and this is something discussed in these spaces for years. The problem is if you do give her that attention, she'll resent you for it.
She'll resent you for it. Oh, you ain't about shit. You ain't doing that. Yeah, Skeletor would be sitting up in Snake Mountain getting bitched out right now.
Yes,
just like he was by Motherboard getting beat up and abused. Because don't think I didn't miss that at all. Motherboard was abusing that man.
Oh man,
he was an abused man in his own castle.
Yeah, he was. He was
by the internet.
Yeah. I mean, look, for black men, especially if you came up in the 80s, there was a million love songs and music videos that taught you to worship women. What they didn't tell you is when you worship women, women resent you for doing it. Yep. They want you to worship on the surface, but they'll penalize you and punish you for doing it. They want men that are fixated on something bigger than them, because how can you protect her if you can fall to her whims? But she's going to push you for that. And, if you fall to it, it ends up being a disaster. So it's a very counterintuitive dynamic when it comes to addressing women. And so when you look at this situation with her, this whole question of attention, part of the reason she was so dedicated to Skeletor is he didn't pay her any attention. You ever see Harry Potter and you look at Voldemort and what's the crazy chick that was always in love with him?
Bottom Carter, her character.
Which one is it?
I forget the character's name. I'm not as familiar with Harry Potter with everybody.
But her. Yeah, Harry Bonham Carter. You're right. I didn't know you were saying her name. The actress.
Yeah, Helen Bonham Carter.
Yeah,
I forget what character her name was. But
part of the reason she was in love with Voldemort is he did not prioritize her.
Well,
Bellatrix. That's what Corey told us.
Thank you,
Corey.
Bellatrix.
She was in love with him, and he was like indifferent to her. But if he pedestalized her, she would have punished him to no end.
Well, we talked about it earlier. That was Joker and Harley Quinn initially.
Yes. Absolutely.
She adored Joker. Joker could pay her no mind, a little at that. that was the whole thing.
Now, those three examples represented the toxic end of that dynamic. Now, if you take it to the positive end of it, you take in the 80s, He-Man and Teela. Teela was in love with He-Man. He-Man prioritized protecting Eternia. He dug her, but he prioritized his mission. And she was always right there. But the moment he pedestalizes her, it's a different situation. So you have this, you can have it in a toxic end, you could have it in a healthier end, but at the end of the day, you have to find a way, and this is also part of the journey of men, to appreciate and love women especially in your family, but not prioritize them above what you're here to do, because even they will punish you for it. You know what I mean?
They know you off code.
You're off code. Absolutely. Are you strong enough to stand on code and do what you need to do, which ends up working for the benefit of the family in the long run? Or are you going to drop the ball? You know, even if if you're fighting an enemy and, you know, she trips and stubs her toe, are you going to run from the fight to go pick her up and risk everybody's health? Or can you follow through and do what's needed? This is you ever seen that movie Passengers?
Passengers or Prisoners?
No, Passengers.
With
the guy from
J-Law, Jennifer Lawrence, and Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt, yes.
Yeah,
there's a scene. There's a scene in Passengers where this, you know, the Passengers is basically about this ship that's flying to another planet. It's got about 5,000 people in stasis, and they're all asleep. And for some reason, Christopher Pratt's character wakes up due to an abnormal technological issue. So he's the only one waking up, and he's 90 years from his destination, and he's walking around the ship by himself for a good couple years. And he's trying not to go crazy. And he wakes up a woman that he's been, you know, kind of studying, and lies to her about why, you know, he wakes her up but doesn't tell her that he woke her up, so on and so forth. So this is what the story is basically about. And they find out that the ship is falling apart. Now there's a point when they finally figure out what the problem is, and he has to go fix it. And he's outside of the ship trying to fix it, and she suffers an injury. Now they're on comms, so they're talking to each other, and he hears her moan and scream out that she's in pain. And he says, "Oh my God, are you okay?" She says, "I'm fine." He was like, "Are you sure?" Now, here's the thing. If he stops what he's doing to come back in the ship and help her, because she, you know, something had, I think a bolt had gone through her shoulder or her arm. Right. She was in pain. If you're not balanced in your manhood, you might stop what you're doing to go help her. And then everybody dies.
Everybody.
Versus, okay, I'll get there when I can, but I have to do this, which takes care of the entire situation. And then we'll put your arm, you know, we'll wrap you some bandage when I get there, you know, but that's called priorities, prioritization. That's another one of those skills that's taught when boys are initiated into manhood. You know, so I've covered 3, right? Conquering fear, discernment, and prioritization. Can young men learn? And this is what fathers do. They teach you how to set a goal, move toward it, prioritize that goal, and make sure what you do brings you closer to it and you don't get distracted. Can you follow through? Begin and end a task. It could be anything from cleaning the kitchen to playing a sport to whatever, to getting a job, saving up for something. They'll give you, it can manifest itself in a lot of different ways, but it comes down to, can you develop the capacity to set a goal and follow through? Because that's going to be something that your family will depend on as well. Right? It's not flashy all the time. It's not exciting all the time. And that's the point, because you cannot afford to be like a cat following every shiny little thing. You have to set a path for those that are in your care. What's best for us in the long run? Well, I'm going to work this job for this many years, and I'm going to go over here. Then we'll move here. We'll buy this house. There needs to be structure. Otherwise, that same time period can pass and you just flit from one thing to another. And at the end of it, you are no further along than when you started.
Right. You don't have the option of being flitty because you're the one supposed to be having a purpose.
Absolutely.
And you have to be the one that's stable. You can't be the one that like you were saying, the cat following every shiny object on the wall, you know, and not really being responsible for anybody, but expecting somebody to be responsible for you. You actually have to have a course. Yeah. You actually have to have some things concrete.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
And your woman may cuss you out for not fixing the ship to come help her with her arm. You think you're doing a service, and she's looking at you like we're all gonna die.
Yeah. Why did you come here? You're not supposed to be here.
Right.
You called me. Yes, but you're supposed to save the ship, dumbass.
He said you called me.
Real man. That's the thing. Look, if you're hearing the complaint, you're probably doing the right thing. You have to learn how to tune that shit out.
He said, but you called me.
You called me. I didn't want you to come.
I just wanted you to hear me.
Yeah, I just wanted you to hear me and be with me in my pain and understand that I was hurting.
Right.
And I had an injury and it was serious. It's a hangnail. I didn't want it that serious. You didn't have to come all the way back in here. Like,
yeah. But if you lose the job that everybody's depending on because you ran back to the house because she had a hangnail, she's gonna be pissed at you. You know,
she's gonna be pissed at you. You trade in the job for me?
Now the funny part is she may still be pissed at you when you come home after work to address it, but there's still structure and she'll kind of get over that. But she ain't getting over it if that job is gone.
Yeah, she'll be pissed, but then she'll talk about, can we go out to dinner? What? Yeah, I'm still mad. You know, it can make it better if we went out to eat. I'm hungry. No,
yeah,
eat your ass down, shouldn't we?
And the next day she's happy and she'd have forgotten all about it. Yeah. But if you lost that job over her flitting back and forth, those are permanent repercussions. You know what I'm saying? So being able to follow through is huge. And that again is something that the hero's journey teaches you. I mean, every cartoon, movie, comic book you ever read as a kid, the hero is introduced to a problem. He has to adapt and get stronger. He has to overcome the problem. And that is that's the 3-step, dynamic for manhood that we learn even as kids. So a lot of people, they see this and they're like, okay, you got swords on the wall. You're talking about comic books and this isn't real. I'm like, no, this is the basis for what it is that society depends on. Yeah, it depends on men understanding these dynamics.
And that's why when I was in college, when we got to do some of those reports, I did reports on geekdom and stuff like that to bring it to people in a different way other than, oh, this is kid stuff. No, it's actually not. It's actually teaching some actual valid lessons for life that you wouldn't get because you don't pay any attention to it because you write it off as, oh, it was a comic book or it was a cartoon or whatever. But if you get into the story of who these characters are, what they deal with, you'll understand it is a greater social theme that's happening with these characters other than the fact that they're just animated or colored in watercolors or something like that. There's more going on than just the colors, more than the pictures. You have to get into it to understand that shit.
Right.
That's what I love about it. Well, that's what I did love about it when people could write.
When people could write, yeah.
People could write.
Yeah. I would say those of you, who are listening to the sound of my voice, when you have boys that are into this stuff, we have to be responsible for elevating the deeper lessons in what it is we're reading and watching and making them see how it relates to their lives. We got to take it to the next level. But the importance of the story, it's there. It's really important because, if you just walk up to an 8-year-old and start talking about, initiation to manhood, he's going to go to sleep on you. The mythology of these things it gets their attention. It strives and strikes their imagination. You just have to take that and make sure that they understand that there are life lessons embedded in these things. And that's where we as fathers and mentors come into it. HeMan is in Eternia, but some of that shit he's dealing with, you got to deal with right now.
Deal with right now, right here in Earth.
Yes. Yes.
And I will say to Ridiculous Thoughts points about the stigma against men and adult males reading comics and stuff like that. That's diminished a lot from what it was in the 80s. It's diminished a lot since what it was in the 80s because here's the thing that diminished it. There's money in it now. There's a shitload of money in it now. There's content creators that all they do is talk about geek shit and got toys and everything in the background. And people look up to them and line up to see them at cons and everything else.
Yeah.
Because there's money in it now. A lot of women have changed their tune on that shit because we always know where their bread is buttered. If it's making money, they're happy.
Yeah.
Because that means they want to get a piece of it. Yeah. But so it's not, the stigma is not there as much anymore because there is a whole generation of males and females raised on this shit. Like I tell my son he's lucky as hell because their generation, you can find cute girls that like anime and comics and shit like that and might know a little bit more about it than you.
That was hard in 1985, boy.
It was, boy. That was hard days. On days. She might have been a big old.
Yeah, she might have been.
She might have had the pimples on the face and everything else. Like,
oh yeah, man.
She know about this and she liked video games, but
oh man,
I'm not turned on at all.
Shout out to Donnie. He said, didn't the original show have life lessons moments at the end of each episode too? They did.
Always.
They did. The only reason I'm talking about us doing it is it's a whole nother level when you're talking to your son.
Yeah, you
and
have to
you're
give it
able to
context.
invoke stories from your family so that they can see that they come out of a continuum. It's another level of humanizing you. But I give credit to the show. They did used to do that. They came with life. Some were pretty corny and stupid, but
Some were on it.
some were right on time. You getting lessons on bullies while you're in school dealing with bullies. Hey, I credit them for that. But anyway, so um we get the Tri-Sorceress, we get the upgraded He-Man. They're dealing with Skeletor, and they finally defeat him. And so Adam at that point gives up the monarchy, and without a constitution in place or anything, says they're just gonna switch to a democracy. And
no constitution, no nothing. Nope, it's
nothing.
just over. We
Nothing.
good.
And this is something Artisan and I talked about on his show earlier this morning. We were saying the problem with that is that we have this difficulty in Western media imagining that societies can be functional outside of our political ideology. And my thing is, look, nobody in Eternia complained about shit. They weren't having revolutions against the monarchy. You didn't see lords and serfs, and they actually seem to be getting along quite well. And so it's quite possible that monarchy might have worked for them as an alien species. My only point is that this assumption that this Western model of democracy is the de facto best political system in any universe is it's a little much for me. And this was something that bothered me in the first Black Panther movie, where you started to, right around that time, I think it was in the comics, they were starting to push for Wakanda being a democracy. And I'm like, here you have a country that's supposedly thousands of years older than the United States. You mean to tell me they never contemplated a democracy before then? Really? As advanced as the society was, I found it politically arrogant in a very American nationalistic way. But the other thing, it came to me looking at the Dora Milaje, right? Because in the comics, they were available for sex with the king if he wanted. But by the time you got to the movie, of course, they wiped all of that out and made the Dora Milaje like their primary military base and whatever. But
yeah, by the second movie, it was the primary military. Like, no, these are just the king's guard, potential lives. And that's why they would protect the king.
That's why they protect the king. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you where it came from though. I was at Temple in '96. I was doing my master's in African American study, and I met a woman from I want to say I don't remember what country she was from. I'm tempted to say she was Nigerian, but I met this African sister, and I wasn't after her or nothing. We were just having there was a conversation in the hallway, and it was a really good one. She was in it, and she started laughing at American feminists, and I was like, what? I'd never seen that before. And so they ended up getting into this discussion about clitoridectomies and, the kind of things. Now, if you don't know, that's, I don't know if I can explain that and not get the channel shut down. So, with female circumcision.
Yes, opposite circumcision. Pretty straightforward.
Now, the weird part about it is, of course, in the West, we were taught this was horrible. This is horrid. This was this. And that's the position I took because that's what I had learned about it. And she was like, I had one, and my family had one, and my mother and my grandmother and my great grandmother. And she framed it like y'all are silly in the West.
Y'all worry about this stuff like.
I'm not arguing for female circumcision. I'm just telling you what this woman was saying. And I had never met anybody who grew up in a culture like that and was talking to us like we were crazy. And there were merits to this culture that I never heard of. Now, fast forward to the Dora Milaje and Black Panther. Now, all of a sudden, the remote idea that he might have sex with him was laughable and was distasteful. And I'm saying, if you have this isolated culture that's thousands of years old and more advanced than almost any other society on the planet, would they have practices and traditions that would violate your sensibilities as an American?
Absolutely.
In 2018 or whatever it is, like they would more than likely have traditions that you don't like, but their society is successful with. So why is it that they have to adopt what America has simply because, so I just looked at it like if this was a real society, there'd be a lot of shit they do you probably don't like.
Yep.
It is what it is. And they can be successful or they can fail at whatever it is they're doing. But if they're successful, all the more reason for you to actually step back and pause. Like, maybe we don't know everything.
Yeah. What do they got going on over here that this works for them?
Yeah. And that was my thoughts on Adam, kind of dismissing the monarchy. I'm like, okay, all right. We've heard that a monarchy is nowhere near as good as democracy because of the very specific historical narrative that we've learned about coming out of Europe and so on and so forth. But would that be the case everywhere?
No.
For all time? Really?
No, wouldn't be. Like,
okay.
Does Japan still? No, they don't have an emperor anymore, do they? I don't know. Certain cultures, I think that worked for them better than what we have, the shit show that we have going on over here. Some people might think that parliamentary system works a little bit better. It's what worked for their culture, and I don't believe in grafting all your personal mores from your culture onto somebody else's culture and thinking that's what it should be just because. I mean, for in recent memory, what has it been? It's been American culture trying to graft itself onto Islamic or culture or something like that. Like, oh, it needs to be like this, and they're oppressed there and whatever. Like, that is their fucking business. That is their business. If they don't like it, they can have a revolution too.
Right.
And you don't need to go there and foment it. You don't need to do that. You just let them work out their natural process. If it works for them, it works for them. If it don't, you'll have some new immigrants.
You'll have some new immigrants.
Fuck, dude. Like, no, stop it. You can't keep doing that. You can't keep trying to force your views onto somebody else who didn't ask for it and don't want it.
Well, you had earlier raised the brilliant point about Dr. Doom and Latveria.
Yeah.
And that same dynamic.
Yeah. Because for me, I like Dr. Doom as a character. I really do. But Latveria is pretty much run by him just because. I don't remember anybody electing him. I don't remember him being born into some monarchy or nothing like that. None of that shit. He just took over. And the people there like him mostly because he protects them. But if they say anything out of line about Doom or anything like that, they are disappeared. There is a whole character. Her origin is her father was one of these people who was kidnapped by Doom and just disappeared somewhere because he said something out against Dr. Doom.
Dr. Doom, yeah.
It is some oppressive shit. So yeah, you probably happy because he protected you from everybody, but don't think them Doom bots is just for people on the outside. No.
And they were floating around everywhere.
No, that's for you. That's totalitarianism right there.
Right.
Now, if you want something to be overthrown and start burning some flags, Latveria would be a good place to start. But no, Marvel Comics, where'd they start? First it was Asgard, then it was Wakanda. Like, dude, there's only one black place here. Why you got to start with us? Fuck with Namor for a while. Like,
right. And and to me, the measure of a society that's functioning well is that the lowest among them has access to food, clothing, and shelter, and it's not difficult to get, if not impossible. Like, it should be accessible. If you can have a society where everybody can eat and everybody has access to warmth and shelter and so on and so forth, then you're talking about something. And the way that Atlantis, Wakanda, Eternia has always been presented, you had that to varying degrees. But and it's not that I'm against us complicating these stories with reality and evolving our political discussion, but just to ham-handedly just kind of take democracy and just kind of throw it over there, I'm just like, you need to have built that up with a little bit more.
Yeah, like some civil unrest, something.
Yes.
Maybe Randor was a kind of a shitty king. It didn't seem like that at all.
Didn't seem like that at all.
Didn't seem like that at all. He basically decided because he didn't want to be king. He wanted to be out there in the days of high adventure, just going around slaying people with a sword. And the throne got destroyed, or the castle got kind of destroyed guess he didn't want to rebuild because he didn't know how to work some spackle or some stonework. He just like, you know what? Shit's kind of ruined, so why don't we just end this whole monarchy thing? And yeah, you got a democracy now. Now I can go off and be HeMan for all the time. Like what the fuck? What kind of dumb shit is that?
Yeah.
Like that was such a flippant ass way to deal with that situation. To honor your father, your dead father, I think it would have been more in keeping for you to rebuild the castle and keep the monarchy. Yeah, you're gonna run into a problem if you want to have a baby with Tila, but maybe y'all can do some, immaculate conception bullshit like they do in Star Wars. She's a sorceress after all. I mean, figure it out. Maybe Evil Lynn is willing if Tila wanted to, turn her back for a while.
Man, don't even get me thinking along those lines, because when I was a kid, Evil Lynn was doing things.
She was working.
But I say this is how I'll close.
Grown ass woman right there, dog. That's a grown ass woman.
Yeah, she was grown. She was real grown in the 1980s. But
yeah, she was.
I'll finish this political part of it with this. I mean, I said this earlier in your show, but I remember watching Mel Gibson in The Patriot, and he said something I thought was real interesting in that movie. He said, "Why should I trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away?"
Exactly.
And I'm saying that to say, as the descendant of people who were enslaved and in this country, whether it was a monarchy or a democracy, we still experience what we experience. So at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, either can be oppressive. Yep. I mean, I don't really feel represented in this upcoming political election, this presidential election. I never did.
I don't. I don't, and I haven't. It's like I've worked or been unemployed under both Democratic and Republican regimes. It's always the same for us. It's always the same for us. So it doesn't necessarily matter to me who's sitting in the chair and who think, no, I got your best interest at heart. No, the fuck you don't.
To me, if you want to make it political, we can make it really interesting, but just don't do this last minute, grab at something. It was just way oversimplified and last minute. There was nothing leading up to it in either season that even led to a political discussion like that. So I just thought, if you're going to do it, at least put more into it so we can see what the reasoning is. But that's just me, but overall, I'll say I enjoyed this season far more than the first, far more.
Yeah, I would agree. This season was skull, head, and shoulders above what was last season's debacle. And Kevin Smith actually saved himself or bought himself a reprieve for a little bit in doing this season. And I'm really want to find out if he actually kicked the other writers out of the room, because he didn't write every episode, but it seems like he had more control over the plotting of these episodes, because it was even the different episodes that were written by somebody else, it really seemed streamlined. It really seemed like they were following the pattern, and they did not deviate from formation. Yeah. Like they followed it all the way out, and it was almost seamless between his episodes, their episodes, and then back to his episode, that you had the same story going through there. It was equally as good. So I'm really curious what happened. Everybody wants to pin it on Ted TB or whatever his name was. That he was the one who introduced all that bullshit into the first season. I'm like, well, it's a good thing he just got down to some little bit of voice acting in this one then. Maybe that's it. Maybe that was the Netflix crew that came in, and this is what we doing that works at Netflix, and it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't what was working. They kicked them writers out or put them to the side a little bit and got his nuts up and said, no, I'm not taking it on the chin for season 2, because as well as this one has done with geeks, you hear actual geeks actually giving it some praise. It's not a lot of hate coming from this one. Yeah. A lot of praise coming from it. The fact that they did a season 2 after they had that shit show of a first season, and this one is doing so much better than that one, it's definitely getting a season 3. You cannot not do a season 3 after that.
Well, one area One area they suffered in though is that they're still trying to restore confidence, because there's a lot of people that refuse to give the second season an opportunity because they were so disappointed. And at the end of the day, it wasn't just the writing. The last one, the animation has always been great for both seasons.
Yeah,
but it wasn't just the writing in the first season that was a problem. It was that Kevin doubled down on what they were doing, and he told the fans who took issue with it to basically shut up and go away. That really tarnished his reputation. So you have a lot of people that don't want to be bothered. And if you look at the down votes versus the up votes for the trailer, it's bad. It's still bad. Even though this season is far better than the last, people are still reeling from that. And I'm gonna tell you, if they do another season or even a part 2 to this season, if they go back to anything reminiscent of the first season, it's gonna kill any of the grace that they've developed with this first part.
Yeah, they would be. I don't want to throw it out there, but it's absolutely. If they went backwards, if they did a backtrack on this and turned the full 360 and went back to that bullshit they were on with the first season, you will get rightfully flamed harder than you did the first time. You will.
Yeah.
And Kevin's career wise would be fucking done, dude. He wouldn't be able to sell fucking Cocoa Puffs.
Well,
commercial, dude. Like,
and they can go either way with this. We got the Tri-Sorceress. We got the hinting of Adora. We got Evelyn now as part of the Zodak crew.
Yeah,
you could either continue in the way you're going now, and of course we got Andra as the possible new president of Eternia. You can girl boss that to death, and they still can do it. They still can. They've set the pieces up, and it's like, okay, you got my attention with this reset, but I still don't know where you're going to go with this. And there's a lot of girl bosses in place. So
there's a lot of girl bosses in place. There's not an equal number of men in place anywhere, because Skeletor ain't even Skeletor no more.
Right.
He's not. I don't know if he got magic abilities anymore, but Keldor is restored in a sense. So what is he going to be now? Just walking around blue-skinned, looking like Nightcrawler Daddy, looking for a job or something to do? I don't know.
Shout out to Ridiculous. He says these classic franchises only work if you have Gen X on board. If you drive off Gen X, nothing will succeed. This is what happened. This is what's happening now in media.
Yeah. This is because, like, Black Bane was joking with me this morning about watching the Roadhouse trailer. His childhood now is getting diddled. Gen X's childhood has been groped inappropriately for the last couple of decades. And Gen X is not happy about that shit, right? But we're sort of walking away from this stuff altogether, even though we've kept it alive for all this time. Millennials and Gen Zs don't have that same love like that.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah. They can walk away from it.
Yeah, because if they OGs ain't watching it, why do they care?
Yeah.
And Zs have no connection to it outside of what a millennial or somebody might show them. Why would they care? Who name a Gen Z who gives a damn about Masters of the Universe anyway?
Right.
What nostalgia does it bring up for them? Them shitty ass toys that they made in 2000?
Yeah, that might have been it.
The cartoon that was kind of sucking.
I like the 2000 series cartoon, but I
didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it? It was good.
I can think of seeing maybe 2 episodes of it, but I didn't follow it religiously. I didn't.
It was brilliant, and they had a lot to it. But there's a YouTuber whose name his channel I forgot the title of, because I just ran across it by accident. But he actually had a theory I thought was quite brilliant. He was saying that the 2000 series could be viewed as a prequel to the 1980 series. And if you watch it, it's real interesting because they cover a lot of stuff. But the 80 series was episodic and formulaic, so there really weren't any long arches with stories.
Right. No long arcs.
Yeah. But if you watch thank you, arcs. If you watch the 2000 series and then kind of rethink the 80 series, it actually kind of works, and it's some real interesting stuff in there. Hordak, the Snake Men, and then of course they introduced King Grayskull.
More of the lore. More of the
lore they introduced in that, and it was actually really well done. Now with this series, they try to do a lot of the race swapping. I'm not a fan of that. I just want to see black characters that are written well, not white characters painted black. So I'm not as interested in that. And I should say there were at least 3 or 4 black men in this series. There was Mendor, who was a doctor. There was Clamp Champ. There was King Grayskull, who's made black in this series. And there was, I think there might have been one other that's escaping me at the moment, but at least three brothers in there.
I'm still trying to figure out if Sunman showed up in this.
I swear he did, but I haven't found it, so maybe he didn't.
Like, did Sunman actually show up?
I don't. I thought I know in terms of the toys, Masters of the Universe brought him in, but I thought I saw him in the first season, but maybe I didn't because I can't find it. But there's at least 3 brothers in it. I think Andra is the only black woman from what I saw. She's from the ghetto, but she's highly ambitious and she's trying to take over Eternia and
ghettos of Eternia.
yeah. It's kind of like they kept reminding us that she was man at arms about 5 or 6 times, and they kind of just
the only thing they didn't say that she was beautiful or brilliant. Like
no. But she did kind of remind me of the last Jurassic Park movie where the only 2 black people in it. There was a gay dude that he was suspect, and then there was a sister, and she was overt about her. The sister was overt about her sexual attraction to the lead white woman in the movie, and that's what reminded me of Andre.
That was Bryce Howard. Like, yeah, I want you.
Yeah, she was. I
want you.
Yeah. Wow. And it was funny because the 2 black characters met at one point. So the only black man, the only black woman in the movie were both gay. At least, well, they didn't say the guy was gay, but the implication was kind of there. He didn't technically exhibit any sexual interest in anybody, but the woman was clearly gay. And I was just looking at it like, if this is a statement about black men and women, this is a cold piece right here, boy. But
it's a cold piece of work. My mother watched that movie. She was the first one that told me not to watch it. That's Jurassic Park. She was the first one that told me, don't watch that. That's wasting my time. And that's a black woman that didn't want to see that shit. She didn't like the black woman that was in it either. I'm like, wow, my mom a movie buff too. She hated that shit. She wasted her time. She watched it at home and felt she wasted her time. Like
that character in that reminded me of Andra. She really did. She was really kind of a mutt. Like, she didn't come from anywhere. She didn't have no family. She didn't have no people. She's just running around these folks, following these white folks around, falling in love with whatever white woman was leading it. That's who Andra reminded me of. But so you still kind of have that. And if you really watch it, the very first time Andra meets another black character in the first season is Clamp Champ. The first thing she did was attack him. That was the only interaction I saw her have with any other black character. She tried to kill him. I was like, what?
That's some social messaging right there.
I was like, and take you back to the Nat Turner story where Turner's wife, the first time he sees her, she tries to attack him. It's like, damn. Anyway,
you're a criminal. Like, what is you doing?
Like, the hostility is real, man. Damn.
Andra was white in the original canon. He was.
I don't remember. Was there an Andra in the original canon? I didn't know that.
There were some other females around there, and I think I remember that from the first season when we were going over the first season that Andra was originally white, and they race swapped her. They said to put some more diversity in there.
Andra was Teela's friend and rival in the canon. I didn't even remember Andra.
Yeah, because that's why them bringing Sunman into it was such a big deal, because for a long time Masters of the Universe was considered just white because there wasn't a lot of ethnic characters in that shit. It wasn't. Right. So that's why Sunman was such a big deal, because here's somebody who's supposed to be like strong like HeMan, just like HeMan, but it's a black dude. It's a black character, because they made that character because there wasn't one in there. There wasn't one. You got the Masters of the Universe and nobody in that bitch black. Not a one.
I think this is I guess was supposed to be Lieutenant Andra. I don't even remember her. Don't even remember her. So that's deep.
They switched her up just to make it a little bit, different.
It's different, all right. But
Make sure everybody feel like they being seen and represented. Is that black men?
It's kind of like black Kryptonians. There are at least 4.
There's at least 4, but it was a whole planet. But
there's at least
found 4 of them. It was hard to find.
So that was, but apparently, if King Grayskull is supposed to be representative of God, he's black. He's Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman.
So
me and Charles was joking. That means that Adam is black. Adam is part black. Might be where you get all the muscles from.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
By the power of black man. Buff.
They wasn't playing that in the 2000 series. That dude was Nordic. He was
Nordic as hell.
Long blonde hair, blue eyes. They wasn't even playing.
Yep.
King Grayskull. This is what he is.
Yep.
So, anyway, but thank you, brother, for coming through. I don't know what happened to Officer Charles's mic or whatever, but I appreciate him dropping through, and I appreciate you doing 2 shows. Like I said, go back, watch Artisan's reviews of each episode.
Yeah, it's 2-parter. I got first part is episode 1 and 2, and then the second part is episodes 3, 4, and 5. So it's 2 videos. They're short. They're only about less than 30 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah. So check that out. You can see how Artisan MC is spelled right there on the screen. So make sure you support the channel. And you want to tell them what you got coming up next, or what they can look for?
Next thing I got coming up next is Monday. There'll probably be a Artisan MC stream come Monday. I go live randomly during the week in the mornings. I will go live when I have time to actually talk to you guys and give you some thoughts that I'm having about geekdom or whatever is going on. And then my regular weekly stream is on Sundays at 11 a.m. on my channel, Artisan MC. So that's where I try to bring everything together and sit down, have a panel discussion, and let's just talk about all the stuff that we consumed in this week from geekdom and whatnot, what I watched, what I didn't watch. Or you can bring me stuff that you want me to actually take a look at. If it's that interesting, I'll make time. I'll give you at least 2 minutes to try to sell me on it. That's for sure.
All right. Let me shout out Donnie Mac again.
Donnie Mac.
Because he makes an interesting point here. He says, I thought that was Dennis Haysbert. I was when I said Morgan Freeman. You're absolutely right, actually. This isn't it. It was Dennis Haysbert.
Yep. Dennis got a good voice too. He got a good voice too. Serrano from Major League.
Yeah, Serrano was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently, he did play King Grayskull. So that's King Grayskull right there with the locks. And he's chilling in heaven in both series at this point. So
Preternian.
Chilling in Preternia. So yeah, Dennis Haysbert apparently played him, and he did well enough. I'm not upset at that at all. But if you've not seen it, if you go to the 2000 series, it's pretty much what's standard for animation as far as a character like that. So they flipped him, making him a brother with locks. A lot of people were upset about that, actually. So
yeah,
how that goes.
Yeah, I didn't mind, but it is what it is. I mean, somebody's always going to have a problem with it. Like you were saying, that a lot of these people's angst is not so much about what they don't want to see. It's just basically whitewashing everything. Right. That it's only through that lens, because that's the only lens that they understood and liked. And I know that comes from a certain age group of geeks. I know that's where that comes from, because they're the ones that feel like the rug got pulled from under them when they grew up, and things were supposed to be one way and they weren't, and they were finding themselves actually not as good as their counterparts in different ethnicities. But that is the way the world works. They blew smoke up your ass. I'm sorry to tell you that shit. And you didn't get a hit of the peace pipe. So it's just what it is. There are other people of other ethnicities that are better than you, just like there are other political systems that may work better than democracy. just is what it is. It is what it is. So you have to understand where you are and how you move in that system in society, and not just think everything needs to go back to the way it was in possibly the 50s, which is never going to happen.
No, and that was part of the discussion this morning. If you go back and watch the 11 o'clock show on Artisan's channel, we had a real interesting discussion, and we talked about that very thing. This idea of what was it? What you just said it? Shit.
Whitewashing.
Oh, the whitewashing of the characters. Yeah, right. And what and I said what I noticed is that it reminds me of affirmative action in California. As soon as you got rid of it, everything went lily white again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you have conservative whites talking about, we need to pull back on all of this stuff, you can agree with them, but you'll notice we're never really very loud about it, because we also know, as much as we may not like how this shit is happening in current media, we know that once it's pulled away, they're happy to go back to the status quo of everything being all white. And that's not what we're arguing for. I'm not saying because I don't like that King Grayskull is now black that I don't want black characters. I want original black characters that are written well.
Mm-hmm.
You can leave King Grayskull white. I don't need race swapped characters. Just write good ones. Whereas a lot of these conservative channels are talking about going back to, just an all white framework. Mm-hmm. And I'm not pushing for that either. So
yeah, no, I'm not pushing for that either. And my point was very clear. I don't like all of one thing being anywhere. I think everything should be mixed, but it shouldn't be mixed in the sense that we have to be here just because we need the one Asian. So you need to be here.
Right.
I don't even like comics. It doesn't matter. We don't like them either. Just come in here and write something. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I like the when I hear diversity and how it's used today, it usually means that a bunch of white women got a bunch of other people around them. And that's what they consider diverse.
Yeah.
We pushed out the white men, but we're here and we're still in charge. That's not diversity. Diversity is understanding that everybody has a different background, and you bring that background to your work to help tell the story that you're trying to tell.
Right.
So you can get more authentic characters that have Asian American problems or Black American problems or Hindu American problems or Native American problems in the story, as opposed to they standing in there and it's just Hasan Chop.
Right. I should say real quick, I didn't remember the 2000 series that his name was King Devon Grayskull, which is about as black a name as you can.
Maybe they want black. Yeah, Devon. Come on,
Devon, man. And it's not DVON. It's
Devon.
Yes. That's some black shit right there.
That's black as hell.
But no, that aside,
a Devon tomorrow.
That's some shit. But if you can water it down, I think all I'm saying is, on a racial tip, give us original characters that are written well, that have relevance, have stories, are three-dimensional in their presentation. They're not just add-ons here or there. They're not just sidekicks. So that's on a racial tip. That's what I want. On a gender tip, you don't need to denigrate men, or black men most especially, to put up women. You don't need to do it. If you're going to have a woman that's capable, let her be capable, but it doesn't need to happen on the backs of denigrating men. And I think if you can balance those two thoughts at the same time, you'd be surprised how many people would invest in whatever you're doing, right? And because that seems to be the trend. That's that color purple trend. In order to talk about how, strong black women, you have to denigrate black men. Those two things never needed to be connected. You could have a whole movie about black women doing well, and none of it had to do. Now, of course, you can have stories, because that's real life where people do things. But I was just talking to a woman today about this earlier. I was like, where do y'all get the idea that somehow, because women suffer, men are the bane of your existence? Because there have been just as many men that provided for you on one level or another in society, whether it's people building roads, building the house you're in, the electricians, the plumbers. Men have sacrificed so much in families and in society that somehow you don't see them. But all these stories become about men as monsters, and it's like, really, you really can't see the balance between that. So if we can actually begin to see men as human beings who actually can also be victims of other men and women. I mean, we're human. If we can see that dimension and balance that shit out, we can actually start telling some humanistic stories.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
Well,
it'd make my job of reviewing some of this stuff a little better. I can tell you that much,
You
because
need,
it is like swallowing poison
yeah, it is.
a lot of times to
It is.
actually have to go in and watch this stuff and see these overtones and stuff. Like, have I lived too long to be paying attention to this shit? Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, not again. Here we go again. The same old bullshit. Like, you know.
We need to get Artisan over a studio. He'll piss everybody off, but by the end of it, that shit'll be clean. See some good stories coming out of that bad boy.
Like, look, there for me, there's a lot of people. I believe this. I believe in the comic book industry, in the film industry, there are people who can tell some competent, good stories.
Yeah.
But they are not the ones who are getting the opportunity to write that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, that you are overlooking these people for one reason or another. Maybe they are black male, maybe they just male, maybe they just cis. They not in your crew. Maybe they voted the way you didn't vote. That's none of that shit is actually supposed to matter when you're actually trying to craft a good story.
Right.
Because all of that other stuff is not even, to me, it's not even supposed to be here in geekdom. None of that division is supposed to be here in geekdom.
Right.
Because my view on geekdom is that it's always been a big tent where all kind of people are welcome in that shit. Because as long as you was a geek and you were into this stuff, you was a part of the cool crowd. Even though the greater society thought all of us were weird as fuck.
Outcasts. Yeah.
We were all outcasts. As long as we were together in geekdom, we was good. Because we all accepted each other. But bringing that division from the outside inside this tent is what's fucking it up.
Yeah.
And look, you can have that shit everywhere else. You don't want to hear it. The last bastion, I can't even have my fantasies, my imagination. I can't even have that. Just hook me up to the machine. I'm waiting for my pod next to Neo. I guess. Because that's what you're telling me. I can't even have my fantasies now. Like, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. And those fantasies are far more important, especially to the youth, than people think. They really are. For some of us, they saved our lives because they allowed us to imagine ourselves outside of the spaces we actually lived in. And for others, it stimulated the imagination, but when you just dismiss all of that, it's a recipe for some danger. So, but anyway, man, I want to thank you for coming through, man.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it was last minute and the brother agreed to come through. So I really want to big up his channel. Make sure y'all support him. And
appreciate it. Appreciate the people in the chat that said they subbed to it. I see it there. Lord of Brooklyn, BK for life,
Premium Toy Collect. There was a few others as well.
A few others said they subbed to the channel. I appreciate that. I'll try to give you decent content on there to watch. It's primarily reviews. Do have a Patreon where I do these watches on stuff like this. I record it while I'm watching it and giving you my spiel on it while I'm watching it, so you can see that the takes that I have on this stuff are hot takes. These are not canned, bullet pointed out. Somebody else said it before. No, you're seeing it as I'm watching it, what this thought process and what this stuff is dredging up, because I'm an old enough geek where some of this stuff I've seen already. It's not new for me. So the references that I make are not common references. So,
well, you should also see what gift you get when you donate during a live. I think you will really like that. So all I'll say is Wilma Flintstone. But anyway,
Wilma Flintstone, yeah.
So you guys will enjoy what gift you get when you donate during his
when
live.
you donate. There is the salutes that I give out for you donating on the live stream, because I do appreciate it. I didn't do it today because me and Dr. T were having a really good conversation, and I'm a sucker for a good conversation. I don't want to break from it. It's like I call what I do on my live streams jazz, because it's a jam session, and we were jamming, and I didn't want to break that shit up. Say, now for this commercial break. No, I didn't want to do that. No, we jamming. Let's stay in the groove. Let's just get there. Let's just keep playing, man. Fuck them people. The house burning down. Yeah, whatever. It'll go out when the fire's done.
Right.
I wanted to keep jamming. I didn't want to do that, so I got to make sure to give those people their salutes later on. But most of the other streams, you'll see the 3B salute. Shout out to Malika Me Bang for naming that for me.
Yeah, y'all gonna like that. Y'all gonna like that.
Women get it in, man. When we get it here. That's why Fred never left, because she had them stones back there.
All right, man. I will holler at you, brother.
All right. Peace, Dr. T. Peace,
All
Chad.
right, peace. All right. Shout out to y'all that stayed in the conversation. I'm curious to know some of your thoughts. Obviously, we're going to have a number of people that are going to catch the replay because I didn't really give this a lot of advertisement beforehand. A lot of it was very organic. I showed up on Artisan stream this morning and then decided to do this show right after that. So I appreciate those of you who've been involved in this conversation today. Thank you for that. And critical information. We got all kinds of information from the chat. So shout out to all of y'all, most particularly to, Mr. Donnie Mack and Ridiculous Thoughts. I appreciated the extra information. I hope you guys continue to do that. And of course, if you're picking up this show on the replay, feel free to let us know in the comments any additional information you want to add to the discussion, right? But other than that, y'all have a good night. I will holler at y'all later. Peace.